Well said. How do you do it? Well, I'll tell you what, Mike, you never know what you're going to see.
Hello there. Welcome into the Orange and Black Weekend Wrap. Sam Lubman here with Dan Devone, and you never really do know what you are going to see at Giants games sometimes. That was Dwayne Kuiper on the caller for NBC Sports Bay Area as the Giants get the wild pitch walk-off, the 7th walk-off that the Giants have had so far this season. They are halfway about to the franchise record for walk-off wins in a season. 5-4 win over the Atlanta Braves last night, again, in 10 innings. Former Giant legend Pierce Johnson throwing that wild pitch there to send everybody home happy. And was it a good win? Was it a fun win? I don't know. I don't know if it's a win you're going to put on the refrigerator, but ugly wins still count, Dan.
It's a win at the end of the day, but that might be one of the most dissatisfying wins that I've ever experienced. That was projectile vomit. And I think that at the end of the game, I still have as many questions going into the contest as I did afterwards. They didn't answer a lot of those. And usually when the Giants win ugly, you can attribute it to the pitching and the bad hitting. That was questionable pitching, terrible hitting again, and then some mental mistakes on the base paths, which I'm sure we can discuss.
Oh, absolutely. Again, yeah, a lot of different things. I mean, there was kind of some ugliness on both sides last night. The Braves, they were usually a very sound defensive team. I think they're, top 5 in fielding percentage this year. They were kind of kicking the ball around a lot. That first inning allowed the Giants to score 3 runs in that first inning. Dan, that was the first time the Giants scored 2 or more runs in the first inning of a game since April 19th against the Angels down in Anaheim. That's how long it's been since the Giants have gotten off to that good of a start in a game last night. And then it was on to Hayden Birdsong, and Bird was looking really good the first 3 innings. He struck out the side in that 3rd inning there. Got Michael Harris the second chasing a fastball. Nick Allen on the curve. Painting the corner on Acuna with that fastball. Was hitting 98 on that one. And then just kind of fell apart after that. And got into some trouble in the 4th, some more trouble in the 5th. Bounced his last pitch to Matt Olson for ball 4, and that was it. The mechanics are just in the control just went out the window for Birdsong in the 4th inning last night.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of growing pains. And when you rely on young pitchers, sometimes there are going to be bouts like this where you just lose it and you don't have the sort of pinpoint control. And you can expect that from, we have to keep in mind that he is a young guy that is doing this for the first time. The Giants bullpen wasn't very good, which we can get into, but Birdsong was good. And then he ran into the 4th where he just simply couldn't find the plate. And it wasn't as though they were really squaring him up, but it was just his control that really sort of was
kind of went away on him.
Was the end all for the young pitcher. The Giants have to hit the ball at the end of the day. I think you're going to see a lot more of this. It's not an indictment on Birdsong. He's still a young, good pitching prospect. We all agree, right? And you like where they're at. But there are going to be moments when Birdsong struggles. You're going to see, believe it or not, Robbie Ray will lose a game this year. And the question is just going to be, once again, can this team hit? Can you bail out the pitching, which has bailed you out for the first 2 months of the season? And that's the big question going forward. And quite frankly, Sam, I don't know that they necessarily can.
We can definitely get into that. 888-957-9570 is the number. Again, this is the Orange and Black Weekend Wrap. I am Sam Lubman. Over there is Dan Devone. Steven Risotto is on the board, pressing all the buttons today, making sure we are staying on air. So love that. We shout out to those watching on YouTube as well. That is brought to you by First NorCal Credit Union. For a low-rate auto loan, apply online or just ask for First NorCal financing at the dealer. We are in the Laughing Monk Studios. Laughing Monk, righteously brewed in San Francisco. You mentioned Hayden Birdsong there, Dan. 4 1/3 innings, 2 runs, 2 hits, but 5 walks, though. Yeah, very uncharacteristic there with the walks. And again, just one of those things where the command just went away. It was concerning there, but you mentioned the hitting. The Giants did get the 5 runs last night, and after going 16 games where they couldn't break the 4-run barrier, they got 5 runs in 2 of their last 3 games. So are they hitting better? Yes. Are they hitting well enough? I don't think they're quite there yet. But that, again, when you still got a lot of your bigger hitters, Willy Adames, he's still struggling.
Are they hitting
mightily better than they were a week ago, I would say.
I would say last night, was very reminiscent to a week ago. If it wasn't for wild pitches, a couple of sacrifice flies, and some errors, it's the same team offensively.
Well, they were going against a guy in Spencer Schwellenbach, who has been having a great season already this year. He was kind of really jamming them up a lot. Giants, again, that offense, it disappeared, though, for a large portion of the night. Again, they get the 3 runs in that first inning, don't score again till the 5th, and then it's just... Yeah, it was a grind. But again, I think we know that with this team. We know that the hitting struggles are going to be there. It's just a matter of, they have the pitching to keep them in these games. And it's just, is the hitting great? No, it just kind of needs to be good enough right now until eventually they can get some of these other guys. Like I said, Willy Adames, he needs to pick it up. He is back on the interstate right now after an 0 for 4 last night, 2 strikeouts. He's hitting 195. And I'm not trying to put it all on Adames here, but Patrick Bailey, he's struggling. Jung-hoo Lee, he's looked like he's starting to come around. But that's what we're hearing right now. Crickets from some of these guys.
I want to say, don't quote me on this, and I'm sure you can look it up, stat boy over there at Pasta, but Willy Adames is 5 for his last 48. That's crazy talk.
That sounds about right.
And I want to get into Willy Adames, because it's getting to the point where it's a 7-year deal. It's the richest contract in the history of the franchise. Was it a mistake to sign this guy? I don't think so, but it's worth kicking around. It's time now. I know they're going to sit him down on Sunday, but it's time to really dig in on this guy. And he's a likable guy. And I don't do this typically. I'm not what you would call a homer. There's certain players that resonate with me, and it's sort of like anything else in life. If I like a guy, I pull for him. Willy Adames is somebody that I'm cheering for. I want Willy Adames to hit. I want Willy Adames to play well. He was the first guy out of the dugout to celebrate with Tyler Fitzgerald. I think that speaks volumes for everything that he's been through this year.
Yeah, I mean, we had Larry Bear on a few weeks ago, and he was kind of talking about how, Willy, he's a culture carrier. He's a guy who sets a tone in a clubhouse, and the tone in the clubhouse this year is vastly different this year from last year. And it's one of those things, Willie, he can easily be one of those guys who, getting off to a rough start here, he could just absolutely let that take over what he's doing on this team and let it affect everything else that he's doing. But he's not. He's still finding ways to contribute. Even the Thursday game against the Padres, Dom Smith, he gets that ground rule double, plates a couple runs. You got a runner on third. Adames comes up. He could be trying to swing for the fences too to follow up what Smith does. Instead, he gets the sacrifice fly, and it's one of those things where you're finding ways to be productive while you're in this slump. I know people like to criticize, how he's the most expensive cheerleader in baseball, whatever. Those things do matter in a clubhouse, though. You could be struggling and just be walking around with a perpetual dark cloud over your head. Or you can do what Willy Adames is doing and not letting the negativity in your game kind of permeate outward through the rest of the clubhouse. And he's setting a positive tone that is resonating with this team. And I'll say I think a big reason why when this team is in games late, they feel comfortable and they feel confident that they will find a way to scratch enough runs across the way they can still win games. And
he's been good defensively. At least of late. His glove's been much better. Last night was a good game defensively. I mean,
he's got a lot of errors. I don't know where he ranks in errors right now.
No, he hasn't been good this season, but of late, he's been much better than he was early on in the year.
I mean, I don't think he's ever going to win a Gold Glove. He's not a Gold Glove defender. His future at shortstop is probably murky at best. He did make some good plays last night, though. He could make some good plays out on defense. He's not a great defender, but he is a capable defender, and more importantly, he's a defender that the guys on the mound trust to have behind them when they're pitching.
But here's the thing. He's got to hit. As everything you said is certainly true. We like the guy. He's good for the culture of that locker room. And I'm a firm believer that what you do in that locker room, in that clubhouse, translates to between the lines and wins and losses. So he's vital in that regard. But he's got to hit the damn ball. And so now, and it's still so early, right? It's a 7-year deal. But you have to entertain whether or not this was a mistake, because it is the richest deal they've ever inked a guy to. It's a 7-year deal, and this happens in baseball. The Padres were just in town, and Machado had a lot of pressure on him. If you remember when he went to the Padres,
he's had ups and downs down there.
First $300 million contract, but he's been good for the most part. And then you have Bogart, who hasn't been good. So, there's a risk involved, I think, is what we have to recognize. And while you want Adames to be that guy he was in Milwaukee, there is the risk, and everybody understands this. When you sign up to be the president of baseball ops and you sign these guys to contracts and you're the manager, that this could go wrong. Look, Dansby Swanson he's been underwhelming, right? There's a lot of guys. Marcus Semien on line 2.
Well, let's bring up the guy you just mentioned, Manny Machado here. I pulled up his stats here, and, the pressure of a contract, I do believe, is real.
Sure.
The pressure of...
Look at Soto.
Yeah, the pressure of... Oh, that's another good one there. He's having a miserable time in New York right now.
Well, he's doing a little better of late. That Dodgers series.
Yeah, so, Soto's one of the best at his position. We look at Willy Adames' contract. I know it's the most expensive contract in San Francisco Giants history. But when you look in comparison to the other shortstops in baseball, he's the 7th highest paid shortstop in baseball still. And I would say he's probably the 7th best overall shortstop in baseball. So when you look at, we've said this a lot in discussing football matters, but the market is the market. That's kind of what Adames was. It's kind of a market rate for a shortstop. We think of it as the biggest, check that the Giants have ever written. But in the grand scheme of things, it's just kind of the price of doing business. So I do think there is a level of perspective I do believe Giants fans need to have when it comes to Willy Adames and what that contract means. But at the end of the day, 7th best shortstop in baseball shouldn't be hitting under 200. 7th best shortstop in baseball should be hitting north of 250. Now, you mentioned Manny Machado and the pressure of that contract. His first year in San Diego, that 2019 season, he had just come over from the Dodgers, and he had a great second half with the Dodgers after they acquired him at the trade deadline for, I believe, peanuts at the time. And he helped the Dodgers get to the World Series that year. Then he immediately signs that contract with the Padres. In that first year, Dan, he hit 256, had a 796 OPS, still pretty good, led the league in double plays, was not an all-star, had a 2.5 WAR, which, to put that into context, Dan, he's got a 2.3 WAR already this year. We're 2 months into the year. That first year in San Diego was hands down Manny Machado's worst year in San Diego so far to date. Right now, do you think anyone in San Diego's regretting that Manny Machado deal? He is the absolute fixture centerpiece of that lineup that has dudes all over it.
There's examples on both sides of the ledger. I'll give you another one is Bryce Harper. When he went to Philadelphia, nobody's more harsh than Philly fans. And when Harper first came there, he struggled the first couple of months. And now Bryce Harper, you think Philadelphia values that guy? Hell yes, they do. And so the pressure with the contract is real. So we're willing to give him a pass, but at some point you do have to hit. And that's what Harper and Machado eventually did. Now, there's also the examples I mentioned, Bogarts, Marcus Semien. Hell, Chris Bryant went to Colorado and he's never hit. So
he's disappeared ever since then.
And so there's examples on both sides. So we're willing to say, hey, listen, it's a slow start, but you also have to entertain that potentially this could be a mistake. Right now, we just don't know.
Yeah, and I think here's the thing. I understand. I was actually in a conversation with someone who's kind of feeling the same way. 2 months in, they're already willing to, declare this deal dead. They're already jumping off. It's like, I told like, dude, you're 2 months into a 7-year deal. Like, if this is where you're at, like, you're gonna have a bad time. I don't know what to tell you. For me, my personal philosophy is, again, baseball, it's a long-term sport. It is a large sample size sport. You can't just react, I think, to what I consider a small sample size. And yes, I do believe 2 months of a 7-year deal is a small sample size. I just think maybe he is bad. Maybe the Giants really did sign a dud. We don't know that. If you're saying that that's the case now, you're not saying that because you're certain. You're saying that because you're angry about what you've seen so far, and you're just basically what you're doing is you're making an educated guess. You could be right, in which case you could say that you were first to the trough on that, and I'll give you your blue ribbon for that. But this is a guy who, even throughout his career, the month that he is best at, June, July, August, we're barely there. We're 7 days into June right now. The summer it's not even officially summer yet, Dan. Summer officially starts on the 21st. So we're 14 days away from that. Let's get to the part of the year where he usually does well. And if he's still on the interstate, if he's still hitting under 200, yeah, then I think the conversation gets a little bit more intense in terms of just like, did the Giants just sign a lemon? And then you're looking at this year as being a lost year with Willie. And that's going to lead to a very unfun offseason for him. But you still got 6 years left. And Again, I'm sure there was frustration with Manny Machado that first year in San Diego. He bounced right back in 2020, and what did the Padres do? They made the playoffs. Yep. So, again, these things, it takes a while sometimes. I know that's not fun. Preaching patience isn't a fun thing to do, especially when a guy has a contract of that size. But your other option is banging your head against the wall in anger, and I just don't think that's a healthy option.
Well, I don't blame fans because that's just who they are.
No, I don't.
That's exactly.
I don't mean to sound too harsh, but
you react on what it is that you see. You sign a guy to that contract for 7 years. You expect productivity, and so you're right. Patience. It's an oxymoron for the hardcore fan. And the fans, listen, man. We overreact, and we're here for you. And you want to go knives out on the Giants team, and you want to point a finger at Willy Adames. That's what we do.
Well, they care about what Adames is doing. They want him to be good. I don't think no Giants fan is going down to the hardware store to buy some, pitchforks and tiki torches and run Willy Adames out of town. No one's trying to do that yet. We just want the guy to, again, provide the baseball memories that Buster Posey says that we're in the business of providing.
So I was listening to some podcasts because I had some time being mid-flight, and it's interesting because there's some people there that are out on Buster Posey for signing Verlander, and some people that you would be very familiar with that are podcasting, and I won't mention names, but
I don't want to hear
they are well respected in terms of their opinion, but feel as though Buster Posey should come under more criticism, and I know we'll get into Buster a little bit later because of the two signees over the offseason in Willy Adames, which has been a mistake up to this point, and Verlander, who has been good but has not been available. And so using that as a basis, feel as though that Buster Posey, and I'm quoting here, has been an empty suit. And I'm just curious if anybody else is on board with that sort of logic, or where we at we're talking about the initial stages and having to exert some level of patience when it comes to Willy Adames. I think the same also has to be applied to Buster Posey, or maybe not. I mean, I'd love to hear from you and the rest of them.
I would love to hear that. Is Buster Posey an empty suit? 888-957-9570 is the number. If you want to answer that question, share your concerns with Willy Adames here on the Orange and Black Weekend Wrap. We will take any and all Giants takes. Just give us a call and fire away. We will take it. Man, already people are out on Buster. I hate to sound like a broken record, but 2 months in, we're already making we were so excited to get off of Farhan Zaidi this last offseason. Now, maybe the Giants pivoting to a rookie executive in Buster Posey, is that a risky move? Absolutely. I would have thought they would go out and try and find someone who's been around here doing this for a lot longer. But Buster's a smart guy. He's got smart people in his ear, and general manager Zach Manassian. He is in touch with Brian Sabian and Bobby Evans a lot. So Buster's smart enough to know how to get this done. But if you're just judging Buster off the free agency signings, yeah, obviously it's not going to be a very pretty picture. But we saw Buster kind of go to work a little bit this week. He kind of shook the roster up a little bit. Lamont Wade Jr., fare thee well. Thank you for the memories. Christian Koss. Have fun at Sutter Health Park if they ever get back there. Actually, I heard the River Cats are really quick side on that. River Cats are on a 3-week road trip right now. They have a road trip, and then they went up to Tacoma to play. I don't know who the affiliate of Tacoma is, but the reason they're in Tacoma, that's supposed to be a home series for them.
Tacoma Rainiers.
The Tacoma Rainiers, yes. What's the affiliate for that?
Mariners.
Seattle Mariners.
Seattle Mariners, all right. Makes sense. Tacoma's close to Seattle. But they're supposed to be the home series for that. But Major League Baseball wants to give the field at Sutter Health Park a break for a week because obviously A's and River Cats are sharing it. So
let me ask you this.
So Koss, you're back down to the minors. And then Daniel Johnson, Big Dom Smith, the real Big Dom. We got the real Big Dom now, not that fraud out in Philadelphia. He is in. Those two guys
Shout out bodyguards.
Those two guys have injected a little bit of life into this team. And Buster, he called the team out on Wednesday with these moves. This is what he had to say to fire these guys up.
Yeah, I mean, it's time to go. I mean, I think we all believe that we're better than what we've been with the bats the last 2.5-3 weeks, and it's time to go.
and time to go. It was that night. The Giants rallied from down 5-0 to beat the Padres 6-5. Elliot Ramos got that big double. He was fired up that. I was fired up after that. I was ready to run through a wall after that hit by Elliot Ramos. He's yelling into the dugout. I'm fired up. Then you get the gutsy win on Thursday, and then you followed up with, again, I like to say, Dan, was it a sloppy, ugly win? Absolutely. You know what good teams do? They find a way to win the ugly one. So, again, if you want to look at just the raw signings that Buster Posey has made, the actual contracts that he's put down in front of players and said, sign this and take our money, yeah, sure, there's some disappointment there. But what Buster did this week, he did some mental executiving there, as I make up a word on the spot. You know, he came out, he set a tone, and the players fell in behind it. So just on that alone, to say that Buster is an empty suit, I think completely discounts a lot of what Buster is doing this year.
Here's what I would say about Buster, and I hope we get into further conversations about him throughout the next 3 hours, because I think the jury's still out. And I mentioned this last week. I think everybody was on board with the signing of Willy Adames. Now, I know you and I sort of disagree. I do think that Farhan would have been able to sign Willy Adames. I don't think Adames is walking out of that meeting because Farhan's there. I think they get Willy Adames. I think everybody was on board at the time with Willy Adames, so signing him to that price tag, that's just called inflation. I know that we get caught up in the salacious, it's the richest contract in the history of the Giants. Well, the Giants don't do that very frequently. They don't get into that free agent market, and so that was just inevitable. I don't have an issue with that. And Verlander, you take a roller on a veteran for that staff, it works. It hasn't worked out, but that's the risk you take as the president of baseball ops. You just don't know. We're about to find out a lot more about Buster Posey in the coming weeks. They have to make a move, in my estimation, and you and I can talk about this. I think they have. When I watch that team play, and I'm as patient as everybody else, but the more I watch them play, there's too many holes now. Now the holes are creeping out to second base. I was on board with Fitzgerald a week ago, but this guy hasn't had an RBI since April. The Fitzgerald mess,
really?
The Fitzgerald mess is now becoming real. So now you're going right field, first base, second base, catcher, not to mention what's happening on the left side of the diamond. I think he has to make a move. I don't know that you can do that in June. That's really difficult to do. Now, he's doing the best that he can within his capabilities, and you saw that this past week in shaking things up internally, but he has to go out and get an impact player. This, to me, now is becoming unsustainable, but we can talk at length about that a little bit further during the show, but I do think that Buster Posey now is getting to the point where we're going to find out just how aggressive he is for a team, to me, that clearly has a need and needs a shot in the arm offensively.
I kind of described this week as this was the first real crisis moment of Buster Posey's tenure as president of baseball operations. You know, this was a 16-game stretch where the offense was just completely lost in the woods, couldn't break the 4-run barrier. The runners in scoring position situation was absolutely abysmal. Frustration within the fan base was up. But, you know, with around the team, and Tyler Fitzgerald said something after the game, actually, in his post game that I'm going to play it right here, that I feel like kind of really captures the tone that Buster is setting with this team, as you bring up Fitz, who scored the winning run last night. He was asked about, you know, this team is coming out of the slump. Do you feel like the momentum is changing? And here's what he had to say on that.
It's no fun losing, but we weren't panicking in any way. You know, last year I think we probably would have panicked a little bit more, but we knew the club we had here, and we feel like it's special. And it just, I mean, we scored 4 runs today, which we haven't been doing. So, you know, there's more coming from the offense, but, you know, for us just to put more runs on the board is the key, and we'll win a lot more games that way. But, yeah, there was no panic, but it definitely is a better feeling than losing.
Well, first, that was 5 runs, not 4 runs, but it's okay, Tyler. We'll let that one slide. But no, he said, you know, we were not panicking this year. You know, we would have been panicking last year, but not this year. And that tells me that there is the kind of stable leadership on this team that, you know, keeps the team focused on the bigger picture. Baseball is a long season, 162 games. There's lots of ebbs and flows to this season. And again, are there concerns with the offense? Absolutely. But I just love the fact that you're seeing this team operate day to day the same way. They're not losing their minds over the struggles. They're still staying the same guys every day. And again, it's just the fact that the growth from last year to this year, I am attributing that to Buster and the tone that is being set there from him. He set the tone in spring training in terms of what this team is going to be like. Hardworking, grinding it out, playing this game the correct way. And I think these guys have bought into that process. I think under Farhan Zaidi, that process was not as believable. So when things went wrong, guys are already kind of worried, like, oh man, we're not hitting. Who's going to get sent to Sacramento? Who's going to get traded away? Who's going to get DFA'd? This year, though, when the waters get rough, what you're seeing is a team that is it's trusting its process, knowing that, the leadership above them is going to give them the runway to figure it out until they don't. That's what we saw this week. Buster basically said, you know what? I gave you the runway. Moves need to be made. And that is why Lamont Wade Jr. had to, unfortunately, hit the road. We do have a great show coming up. We're going to hear from
Fitzgerald's got to hit the ball.
He does, but we'll talk about that more on the other side. Fitz is hitting 259 right now. Did get a hit last night along with securing that winning run, though, getting picked off on first. We can talk about that on the other side. Later on in the show, though, we are going to hear from Kyle Harrison. I had a chance to catch up with him yesterday. So we'll be replaying that one at 11 o'clock. So you definitely do not want to miss that. We got a lot of other stuff to hear from. We got a lot of Buster Posey sound to get into. We're going to hear from Bob Melvin at some point as well, from what he said last night. So a lot of great stuff. And then, of course, Dan, you talked about a move that needs to be made to boost the offense. You might not need to leave the Giants organization to make that move.
Ooh.
You know at home what name I am insinuating here, everybody.
Bring it on.
More of that on the other side. That is all brought to you by Fremont Bank. Here for you, here for good. April 22nd.
Crazy.
Pretty wild. Chat with Kruk and Kipe after the game, and then there was the Dominic Smith play as well. So a bit of a twofer there from Steven Risotto. It is the Orange and Black Weekend Wrap here. Sam Lemon here with Dan Devone. 888-957-9570 is the number. We're talking about Buster Posey. Apparently a unnamed podcaster somewhere out there in the internet is calling Buster Posey an empty suit, which
I forgot to give you the name during the break. I will next.
Oh yeah, no, I need to. I don't know. Maybe give me the name after the show because I don't trust myself to not air them out if that is the case. But we're gonna talk a little bit about Buster. We're gonna talk a little about the name of the week, which has been Bryce Eldridge. We're gonna talk about him in a little bit. We got our Bryce check coming up. We're gonna probably do that around 10:30. That's gonna be Steven Risotto's time to shine there. But first off, though, coming up today at I believe 12:30 is tip off. The Valkyries are taking on the Las Vegas Aces. That's Coach Natalie Nakase's former team. She was an assistant coach with the Aces, won a couple championships there. And you could hear that game on 95.7 The Game and the Valkyries channel on the Odyssey app. Catch Kevin Dana and Sophia Jones. They will have the call right here on 95.7 The Game. I believe you could also watch that game on ABC as part of the WNBA's Commissioner's Cup. So that is what's going on today. You catching any of the Valks games?
I like the Valkyrie. I'm into the WNBA. A little flat right now with Becker's out as well as Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark. But I listen, WNBA coming back home, it was just a matter of time. And according to their owner, this is going to be the most profitable team in the history of the WNBA in its first year. So I'm curious to see how that all plays out. But the energy's real, man. Kevin Dan on the call. How can you not listen?
I mean, they've sold out, I believe, every home game they've had so far. So the interest is definitely there. Valks getting 2-5 after getting run out by the Mercury on Thursday. They lost, I believe, 86-77 on that one. Tiffany Hayes, she missed that game with a nose injury. She's expected to be back, the veteran guard there. So, yeah, I've got in a couple of Valkyries games. They're a spunky team. They play hard. They play the full 40 minutes. They play up and down the court the whole way. So, shout out Coach Nakase. She has got a good team on the rise there.
Cash me out one time.
And there is Kevin Dana, who is just one of the best. Really one of the best. All right. Let's talk some baseball, though, because, again, this is the Orange and Black Weekend Wrap. We take any and all Giants takes. All you got to do is get out that phone, 888-957-9570. You can also text us on that number as well. Or just say something, in the YouTube chat. Shout out to everyone there who is watching on Twitch and YouTube and Twitter as well. So we were talking about, again, the performance of Buster Posey. There's already fans who are showing concerns with Buster. And I'm curious if any of those fans want to call in and share their concerns about Buster Posey, or better yet, call in and tell you what you like about what Buster's doing. What is something you like? What is something you don't like about Buster Posey so far? Again, 888-957-9570 is the number. YouTube chat, again, maybe you guys can answer that question there. Skills, Rick, Hyphy Ambassador, I see you guys there. Thanks for locking in. But, yeah, so the moves for Buster Posey that he's made, the physical moves have been kind of meh. The moves that we're kind of talking about the most are almost like the intangible moves or the roster moves he has made so far this year with bringing in Daniel Johnson and Dominic Smith. And again, he said, this is what he said. We played last segment. I'll play it again. But here's what Buster said, the message to the team on Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, it's time to go. I mean, I think we all believe that we're better than what we've been with the Bats the last 2.5, 3 weeks. And it's time to go.
It is time to go, and go the Giants did. Again, 5 runs in 2 of their last 3 games, including the walk-off wild pitch last night. And you talk about the contracts are one thing. The improvement that I see this year with this team that I'm attributing to Buster Posey, it's the tone that's being set. He's set that all the way from back in spring training. Bob Melvin, he's talking about how, guys were wearing their uniforms on the first day of spring. And that is part of the ethos that Buster kind of wanted to preach. Be proud to be a Giant. Be proud to be here. Be proud to come to work, get that Giant uniform dirty, and just play with, Dan, growing up, I went to the Giants hum baby, the junior Giants camps, and they instilled that hum baby attitude that Roger Craig kind of, created back in the 80s. That's the attitude I see coming back to this team. Just, we're going to play the full 9 innings. all 27 outs. We'll go extras if we need to. We're just here to beat you. We're here to come in and kick your ass and get this job done. We're not playing for money. We're not playing for anything like that. We just want to win. And that is the kind of attitude I'm seeing from this team, even when they're down. And when Tyler Fitzgerald says that, we would have been panicking last year, but not this year, that tells me this is a team that's locked in and focusing on the bigger picture and is not going to let slow periods derail their season.
I don't mean to dismiss any of that, but they've got to hit the damn baseball. And so that
always comes back to hitting the damn baseball.
At the end of the day, that win last night. What was interesting? We were hearing from Tyler Fitzgerald. That had to be one of the most awkward post-game interviews after a walk-off.
I didn't think it was that awkward.
Well, it was awkward in the sense that, okay, we're in this sense of jubilation. He just scored the game-winning run, and it was almost as if, I think it was Kruk, it was Kipe that asked the first question. It was almost like, that was kind of weird. That was
one of the weirder ways to win a game.
It was a weird way to win the game. It wasn't as though Fitzgerald played very well. The offense didn't play well. He got picked off of first base. He went from, GOAT to hero. Lee got picked off. There was mistakes. There were wild pitches. And there was just sort of this, typically if you win a walk-off like that for a team that's over 500 that's trying to walk down the Dodgers, there's this, tell me all about it. And Fitzgerald's like, oh my God. And he's getting doused with water. But that was sort of like, yeah, congratulations. It was almost
someone had to win that game.
What is it? How can I sugar this for a game that was so ugly from beginning to end? I just thought the whole thing was sort of weird.
See, I don't dismiss ugly wins. They still count. There's still things you can take away from them. And Bob kind of said afterwards, that was, not the best game, not their cleanest game, an unorthodox way of winning. But again, those are teams, in order to win a game like that, you have to put yourself in position for the breaks to go your way. And that's what I think the Giants are doing. They're keeping themselves in the game. The pitching is good enough to keep the score close. The hitting is going to be just decent enough to where they can kind of score just enough runs to be in things. And then when you get to the later parts of the game, and I asked Kyle Harrison about this last night, and you'll hear from him at 11, there is a belief in this team that 6th, 7th, 8th innings, they're going to figure out a way. And if they don't, okay, we're going to come back tomorrow and we'll figure it out then. And over the last couple years, when this team would get down, they would stay down. If they were trailing in the late innings, you weren't really expecting a late inning comeback. Before Bob Melvin arrived, if a team had a rough loss, like the loss on Tuesday night, it's a perfect example. One of the worst losses of the year. You have the 2-0 lead. Camilo Doval comes in, blows it. You're an out away from, winning that game, but that's when it happened. And then you lose in the 10th inning. A couple of years ago, or maybe even last year, there was a 2-game losing that gave us a 2-game losing streak. That 2-game losing streak would have turned into a 7-game losing streak. Just because the mental fortitude of this team was not up to snuff. You're not seeing that this year. You've seen a lot of tough, rough, gut punch losses, and none of them have sent the season spiraling out of control, and you're still 8 games above 500 here on June 7th, 2025.
No, there's certainly something to that. I want to hear from the callers.
I do want to hear from the callers because Ken in San Francisco is on the line. He has got some thoughts on Buster's performance so far. And I think you're going to want to hear what Ken has to say. Ken, what's going on, man? You're on the wrap.
Hey, good morning, guys. How are you guys doing?
Doing good, man.
Yeah, so I just wanted to touch on Buster's performance so far. And my take is I think Giants fans are a little impatient. We're in June right now, 2 games out of first. And Buster, he's shown us in the last week. I feel like I'm just reiterating Sam here, but he showed that he will make the changes necessary to shake up the lineup. He got rid of someone that he won 107 games with in Wade Lamont Jr. to bring in new, fresh blood into the lineup. That shows a difference from what we dealt with in the regime prior with Farhan. And this regime is different. And being 2 games out of first in June is just a testament to what Buster's bringing to the table this year. So love to hear your thoughts on that.
It's an excellent point, Zach. Ken put some very good perspective there. Despite all the struggles that we've been talking about, Dan, despite the hitting woes, despite the lack of RBIs from Tyler Fitzgerald, despite the ugly win last night, this is still a team that is 2 games out of first place of the Dodgers here in June. This is still a team that is very much in the thick of all of the fun playoff discussions. I believe they are currently the 6th seed right now of the season we're over today. That's not a mark on them. That is more just a reflection of just how good the National League actually is this year. They were playing one of the more disappointing teams in the Braves last night, but even that Braves lineup, there's dudes all over the place. Ronald Acuna Jr., one of the best players in the league when he's healthy. Austin Riley, and one of the better third basemen in the league. Matt Olson hit an absolute tank off of Ryan Walker last night. Walker hung that slider there. I believe it was in the 7th inning there. And that thing was just gone right off the bat. Marcell Ozuna, very good player. Like, there are dudes all up and down that Braves lineup. There have been more disappointing. There's some surprising teams in the National League as well. And the Giants are right in the thick of it, despite all of that.
Well, let's not forget the Braves 2 years ago had arguably the greatest offensive unit in the history of the sport, man. I mean, it doesn't make sense. They're a head scratch. Albies, even Verdugo, who went yard last night.
Well, he almost did. No, he had that.
Verdugo just missed.
Well, Verdugo, yeah, he just missed that grand slam by feet.
Yeah.
That was one of those ones. You could tell where it landed. It looked foul, but then the umpires called for a review. But at first, I thought the Braves challenged it, and it was like, "What's going on here? Are we really challenging this?" Like, and I started to get nervous there because, like, I thought it was foul, but like, okay, I don't see everything. That foul pole's very far away. I'm in the press box; it's way out there. Did I miss something? And they have all the TVs in the press box, and so there's a TV behind me. I go and I stand right in front of it, so my face is like right up next to the screen. You know, I'm doing all the things that your mom tells you not to do when you're watching TV. And you could tell right away that ball sliced in front of the foul pole, and it was good. Turned out it was an umpire review, not a Braves review. But, yeah, that was that Verdugo one, man. That was just a few feet away from being a much uglier story for Hayden Birdsong.
It could have been a grand slam.
And then he struck Verdugo out on the next pitch.
But that's just a really, really good baseball team, and it doesn't make sense while they're not hitting. I've heard talk that
they're not bad at anything, really.
I've heard talk that potentially if they continue on this path that they be sellers. I mean, how crazy is that? If they're selling at the deadline, I don't think that's the case. I think there's just too much talent there.
Well, I think a lot of these guys are locked in for a while too. Acuna and Albies, they're not going anywhere. I don't know what this contract situation is for Marcell Ozuna or Austin Riley, but those guys are fixtures in that lineup. Verdugo, Sean Murphy, I don't know how attached to those guys they are. The name I have my eye on, though, in that lineup, if the Braves do become sellers, which, again, I am putting this in the most hypothetical of long shots of this getting to this point, because I don't think the Braves get that far into the dumps. It's possible, though. It's definitely looking like it. But Matt Olson, though, imagine getting the Mats back together in the Bay Area. That would actually, I'm sorry, A's fans, I don't mean to do that to you, but seeing Matt Olson in this lineup would be incredible. And you've talked about what can Buster Posey do to inject life into this fan base, to get fans behind him as the president of baseball operations in a way that Farhan Zaidi never could. Make that big move for a big first baseman like that. It could be a Matt Olson. It could be someone else, too. There's other first basemen out there. Unfortunately, one of the ones we identified last week, Ryan Mountcastle, he's out for the next 8 to 12 weeks with a hamstring strain. So that's one less option.
I'm an O'Hearn guy.
I know. You swung me to Ryan O'Hearn last week. We were talking about the Baltimore Ryans last week. I liked Mountcastle, but very quickly, it's like, you know what? I'm going to put O'Hearn over Mountcastle on that one. So I'm going to still bang the table on Ryan O'Hearn as well. But again, if Buster wants to endear himself, that's the move he's going to have to make. But as to Ken's point, though, when he called in, he said, preaching the patience. And that's kind of what Buster did. He took it slow. He took it easy. If this was Farhan Zaidi, I know I'm rambling here a little bit, but if this was Farhan Zaidi last year, during that 16-game stretch, you probably would have seen 16 different moves and none of them would have worked.
Yeah, I would agree with the temperament of this team, although, we just have to let all of this breathe. We have to exhibit a level of patience, and I know it's sort of an oxymoron, but I have no issue. If fans want to boo Buster, if they want to go after Willy Adames, they want to go after the Giants, hell yeah, do you, man. I get it. But I do think that Buster Posey, up to this point, really hasn't done much. I know that he's got Adames and Verlander. We're about to find out just what sort of a president of baseball ops he is. The one thing I had against Farhan is that when it came to the trade deadline, he tried to appease both sides. And it started from year one. To me, it was a no-brainer the way that team was playing at the time that Madison Bumgarner had to go. And you as this young brainiac that comes over from the Dodgers, we just wanted you to sprinkle that magic seed and let's be the Dodgers. Build this thing in your vision. Get all these players back from Arizona. Let's get young players and now build this thing. And he tried to play both sides. He deals Melanson, but he keeps Bumgarner, and that's sort of who he was throughout his entire tenure. And I just hope that Buster Posey picks a lane, and gets aggressive. And right now, this team has holes, and he has to go get somebody. So it's on you, Buster. I'm going to hold that reservation until July 28th, or hopefully sooner than then, to see what it is that you do to help what is clearly, to your point, a competitive baseball team that is 8 games over 500.
Yeah, so really quick, I'm going to push back on that 2019 one because I do think Farhan was under some mandates from ownership. He was never given the opportunity to just strip things down and do a complete and total rebuild from the ground up, which I think a part of him maybe wanted to do. I remember I had a conversation with him that December of, I believe it was 2019, so it was after that 2019 season, right after they had hired Gabe Kapler, and I was chatting with him, just about the whole concept of, tear down and stuff like that. And he's like, I'm anti-tanking, I'm anti, losing on all that stuff. But I think that was a mandate from ownership that, if this team goes and has a 100-loss season, the amount of empty green seats in that ballpark, that's a non-starter. So it was put a team out there that is competitive enough to draw fans to the field while putting on a rebuild, which is incredibly difficult to do. And I just don't think Farhan was capable of doing that. If Farhan was given, the reins of like the Cincinnati Reds or the Detroit Tigers, like Scott Harris was given, and he could just kind of do a nice slow tear down, build up, rebuild, he probably would have been more successful. When it comes to Madison Bumgarner, that was just simply, it was Bochy's last year, and the mandate was you got to keep Bum on this team for Bochy's last game. And that was one of those ones where Giants fans would have, it's easy to look back now and say you should have done that. In the moment, if Farhan Zaidi had traded Madison Bumgarner that year, and remember, the Giants, they got hot in that July of 2019. If you had traded Madison Bumgarner there, you would have lost your fan base because that's just how emotionally attached Giants fans were to the big fella. And I was one of them. I was one of the people who was just like, you know what? I don't care what you think you can get from Bumgarner. I want Bum to finish the season out with Bochy. So that's how I look at that.
Well, that's when you have to separate fans' passion to being long-term in terms of building a winner. You have to have a game plan. If you come over and you're this young, this thought of as this young guy who can potentially lead your team to where it is that you want to go, back to, World Series championships, then you have to build things within you have to be a visionary.
You have to, I think, to that point, I do think there was a level of Farhan just needed to be like, you know what? There's a Band-Aid that needs to be ripped off here. And I think in hindsight, you probably could have done that. But again, I don't want to get too into the weeds on that 2019 deadline because...
No, but my point, I guess, the larger point is that it wasn't only relegated to 2019. It was right up until last year.
Well, honestly, I think 2022, 23, and 24 are perfect examples of just kind of the lack of picking a direction. I don't think they made any moves in 22. And then 23, 24, they had A.J. Pollock and Mark Hanna, respectively, who were more placeholders than anything. I mean, Mark Hanna, a great vibes guy. But no, that's going to be the big challenge for Buster, though, in this deadline, is picking that direction and going with it. But again, that's one of those ones where he can't force a trade to happen now. We talk about Ryan O'Hearn. If he calls up the Orioles right now and says, hey, Ryan O'Hearn, what do you want for him? What the Orioles are going to say is, well, why do we need to trade him right now? Why trade him now when we can wait a month and have 10 other teams who are going to be throwing all sorts of whatevers at us to get Ryan O'Hearn? So asking for a trade now, I know you are seeing some teams make moves and stuff like that. Like the Dodgers have made some moves, but they're acquiring relievers because their pitching rotation is breaking down. I'm pretty sure Steven Risotto got a call. He's going to be pitching for him next week. It's like that's how down bad they are. So the moves are going to come when they're going to happen. So in the meantime, though, it's doing what you did this week. Letting the team have its runway. When the decision comes, that's when you got to pull the plug on certain guys. And that's what we saw with the Montway Jr. And that's where I get into, again, and I want to play something that Dave Fleming said with us on the Morning Roast yesterday, the tone and the attitude that Buster is instilling. Because baseball is a mental game. Yogi Berra, 90% of the game is mental. The other half is physical. And I do believe that what you're seeing this year is a team that is truly kind of living into the mental aspect of this game.
Yeah, I think to a certain degree, certainly Buster Posey deserves some credit for changing sort of the attitude and the outlook. But at some point, you got to address what's happening between the lines. And this team can't hit. That's not on Buster Posey, but you do have to fix things. And as I mentioned, you have two position players, that you would you would say are reliable hitters, and one of which is just beginning to sort of snap out of what has been sort of a month-long funk, and that's Jung-hoo Lee, who's showing signs over the last 10 days of getting back to where he was in April. And the other is Elliot Ramos. And aside from that, there is nobody in that lineup. If I'm an opposing pitcher, that I'm going to feel. Chapman's beginning to square it up a little bit.
Got the home run the other night. He had a big double last night.
This is a team that right now is so bad. And you have obviously Wilmer Flores as the DH.
And he's been pretty clutch this year. And honestly, again, Mike Yastrzemski, he's been kind of going through it, but he's a streaky hitter. Fitz, again, he's had 3 hits in his last 4 games. Hopefully he's starting to turn around. But talk about the attitude, though. Here's what Dave Fleming had to say in terms of if this team is taking on Buster Posey's personality and the identity that he's setting.
Yeah, I think they have, don't you? I think they have taken on his personality. It's a personality of work. But when I think of Buster as a player, what was Buster as a player? Buster was a guy who put everything on the back burner other than being the best version on the field that he could be during the season. Buster was just a maniacal professional who there was never a day, not one time in all the years when I was around him, where Buster was before a game, doing a crossword puzzle or pulling a prank never. I never saw that from him. He was just a preparer. And, he was also really, really, really talented, but he unlocked all of that talent by the way he approached it. And not everybody can be that way. I'm not saying everybody has to be as focused and serious as Buster was as a player, because some guys can't handle that and need the release of, some other stuff. I'm not saying everybody has to be like him, but that's what defined Buster as a player. And, being the most prepared we can be to win a game today. And I think that's all he's asking from this group, but he's asking it based on who he is, and those players all know it about him.
So again, there's a lot to unpack there from what Dave said, but just putting in the work, putting in that seriousness, and just, again, knowing how to handle the day-to-day grind and the ups and downs of the baseball season. Again, I know we like to see the splash moves. We like to see, again, baseball is just, we always say that the intangibles. You got to talk about the intangibles. Willy Adames, he has the intangibles. But those do matter. Like, I know it's easy to scoff at those because you can't quantify those. You can't quantify an intangible. Like, Willy Adames, you can't do, towel waves per second. That's not a stat. That's not a thing. So, but it does matter. Like, the attitude of how you show up to the ballpark and play the game, it does matter. And I think while it's not the sexiest thing, it is a big reason why this team has excelled as well as they had, despite the myriad of issues that suggest that this team maybe shouldn't be as good as they are. But there really is no metric, I think, out there that kind of suggests that this team is better than their record suggests they are.
I get what it is you're saying, and I certainly take that into account, that Buster's, his arrival that has sort of trickled down in terms of his strong personality and the way he approaches the game. But I'm more of a between-the-lines guy, and I think it's the pitching is the reason why they've been so good. And it's the pitching that has kept them in this race, and the fact that they're still a relevant baseball team. And as much as Buster means in terms of the intangibles and the attitude, they're going to have to hit or this is going to get ugly. But at some point, the pitching is not going to be their collective ERA is right around 3.
They're the second best ERA in baseball right now. I think 3.07 is their ERA. But here's the thing, Dan.
Kansas City's under 3, believe it or not.
We saw a team of the Padres. It's also a very a good pitching team. They're hitting worse than the Giants over the last month, though. So again, I do think offense is down league wide. So that is part of it. But again, Dan, I tell you, you got a team here that's really, really good at pitching. It's got a great bullpen. It's got a manager that's showing that he knows how to use that bullpen, in a team that doesn't hit very well, but does come through at times when they need him. Does that not sound familiar? Does that not sound like maybe 1 or 2 or 3 different teams that Buster Posey once played for? Like, that is Buster knows pitching and defense is what wins in this ballpark. And then the offense is you're going to get what you can get. That's always been the case. The 2010 Giants, not a great hitting team. They got hot in the second half, but there are some times where they're kind of getting some big clutch home runs. 2012, that was not a power hitting team. Now, you did have a great hitter in Buster Posey at the top there, leading the league in hitting, and Melky Cabrera for a brief time. He was a part of that as well. In 2014, I mean, they were falling apart going into the playoffs before Madison Bumgarner did the Madison Bumgarner thing. So Buster is making this team in the image that he knew, while playing in this league. Now, I'm not saying this team is, on the level of those championship teams, but I see the vision there. I see the mold. And what brought those championship teams together, Dan, was an arrival of Buster Posey in 2010. It took place around June, and it just completely changed the tenor of the season. And on the other side, I want to ask you about someone else who could potentially be filling that role. So we're going to talk a little Bryce Eldridge on the other side. And again, my name is Sam Lubman. That is Dan Devone, Steven Risotto on the board. It is the Orange and Black Weekend Wrap. Where are we at on the performance of Buster Posey and an 888-957-9570? Are you banging on the table for one Bryce Eldridge? We got our Bryce check coming up. We might just do that right away on the other side. We're not going to do it on the end of the next segment. We're going to do it at the top of the next segment, and then we're going to use that as the way to segue into all the other things that Bryce Eldridge is doing. So that and more here on the Wrap, all brought to you by Fremont Bank. Here for you, here for good.
Bow, bow, bow.
drive to right. Yaz has got it. He's coming in. Here's the throw home. It is not in time. And where did the other ball come from?
Came out of the upper deck. Some clown threw the baseball onto the field.
Wow.
I have never seen that.
Now back to the Orange and Black Weekend Wrap. The best Giants talk in the Bay on 95.7 The Game.
What is going on here?
Who's letting the clouds in? What's going on? That was one of the more... We talk about how just an ugly, bizarre game, Dan. That might have been the most bizarre moment of the night. What was that? That was one of the... there was a Harris sack fly there, I believe,
Murphy.
right? Murphy sack fly. Yeah, Sean Murphy hits the sack fly to right. It's a pretty good throw to the plate. And then as the ball's coming into the plate and Bailey's about to receive it, another baseball comes sailing down from the upper deck and almost hits the umpire, lands kind of between Bailey and the umpire, kind of almost hit the ball too, which almost would have been impressive, and then just lands in the middle of the infield grass. And for a moment, there's two baseballs lying on the grass there, and everyone's looking around going, what's going on? This isn't how we're supposed to do things. There's only supposed to be one ball, not two. What's going on?
That was, they always say that you never know when you go to a baseball game what might happen. That was one of those instances. I think I have a couple of thoughts on this. First of all, the serious nature of that, they talked about this on the broadcast, the Giants could have been penalized. Like if your home team does something like that, clearly that runners could have advanced 90 feet. No, you're responsible for what it is that the unruly sort of actions by your fans means that the home team can be liable and responsible.
All right.
I don't promote that sort of behavior. Like, what are you doing? What are you, an idiot? How much alcohol are you consuming? But I do have to confess, Sammy and Pasta, that there was a part of me, thank you very much, that did sort of giggle. And I'm sorry to even give this sort of personal reveal.
It was a funniness
I'm
to
a
it.
guy that grew up as a kid at Candlestick. And that just sort of took me back to the sort of hijinks you would see by the, 3,500 bozos that are freezing their butts off and getting waxed by whomever. That somebody, not that it ever happened, but it just made me giggle that to those beloved people that I grew up with, I could see them doing something like that. So I didn't make it very public, but inside I was laughing my ass off.
Well, I mean, Candlestick, everything was blowing around the field. What's the old line? You see a bag blowing around, there's a 10-pound turkey in it. Like, Candlestick, we weren't throwing balls. They were throwing bottles onto the field, but the balls were empty because you had to drink everything to stay warm.
You didn't get the Candlestick experience.
I never know. I unfortunately, there's some we say on the morning roast. Joe Shasky likes to say, you're too young for this. It's ridiculous. Like, you're too young to remember this, but, in 2008, it's like, bro, come on. I was alive then. But no, that is actually one where, I don't think I ever did a Giants game at Candlestick because obviously Candlestick closed down in 99 and I went to my first Giants game in 2000. So June 17th of 2000 of all days, June 17th.
Pasta, did you ever get out to the stick?
I never did, not even for a 49ers game. But for a Giants game, it wouldn't have been possible.
Yeah, he was born
I was born in 2002.
So he was not able to.
You guys are missing out. You don't know how you have it.
Well, no, it's even worse, though, Dan, because did I go to some games at Candlestick? Yes, I went to some Niner games at Candlestick. But my dad's company had a luxury suite at Candlestick. And so we went to Niner games.
It's kind of an oxymoron, by the way.
It was a room in the Candlestick that you could sit in, had carpeting and cushy seats and free food, which legally speaking, I guess, is a luxury suite. Technically speaking, at Candlestick, maybe not. But that was my Candlestick experience. So I can't really say I was, raised in the whipping winds of Candlestick like you were or like Mark Willard was, who you can hear from 2 to 6 every day along with Dan Dibley on Willard and Dibs. So, no, I never really got the full Candlestick experience there. So I can't really remember.
What were the thoughts live when that thing hit the field?
I was confused. Well, first I didn't know what it was. Like, I see some white thing. What is that? And very quickly you could tell it was a baseball. But then it was just immediately goes to, well, who did that? Everyone starts standing up, looking around, trying to figure out who it was. My first thought was like, you see those videos of because there's a foul ball. I think Murphy had fouled the ball off like 1 or 2 pitches prior to that. And you always see those videos of a dad catches the ball and then hands it to the kid and the kid's like, yay, and then throws it back. And the dad's like, nah, that's why you're going to be adopted soon. That's what my first thought was. I actually
sign that kid up.
That was my first thought. It's just like some toddler threw the ball on. But then I'm thinking where the ball came from. Yeah. No, that couldn't have been it. Everyone starts booing the guy, whoever it was, or girl. I could have been a woman too. But yeah, everyone's just kind of standing up trying to figure out where it came from. There's a brief meeting. The umpires are conversing. Maybe that was when they were deciding whether or not to penalize them or not. But again, it didn't impact the play at all. It was confusing. It was weird. And luckily, nothing bad came of it. Luckily, no one got hurt. It didn't impact the play in any way, shape, or form. That being said, though, if you're going to a baseball game, don't be that guy. Don't throw stuff in the field. It's bad. Okay. It's bad. Don't throw baseball.
You know that had to be thought out, right? Like that was premeditated, I think. Like they're like, and I don't know who it was. I'm assuming it's a younger person.
888-957-9570. If you were that person, call in.
Yeah, I would like to know the thought process.
I can give you a fake name if you really want.
I don't think it was just spontaneous, like, I'm gonna chuck this thing now. I think it was, no, dude, wait for a play when there's a play at the plate and then throw it onto the field. I'm sure it was maybe something that was pre-planned before, maybe earlier last week.
It's a conspiracy.
I don't think it was just one of those, I'm going to chuck this thing on the field.
There's another ball throw on the other side of the grassy knoll, maybe. But yeah, it was just one of those weird things. Here's what Bob Melvin had to say about that after the game.
Now, that's a first. I've never seen that before. And I don't know where it came from, and I don't know what the rule is. I think everybody was a little surprised by it. It didn't affect the play, but it was extremely odd to see another baseball come on the field.
Yeah, let's just be glad it was only odd because it did kind of come close. It was within a few feet of Bailey and the umpire.
You almost threw him out at the plate.
Yeah, I mean, almost. I don't think the ball impacted being thrown out at the plate. The throw was a little offline there, too. So
yeah, what happens if Bailey catches the ball from the upper deck and then tags out?
Catches the wrong ball? I don't know what the ruling is there because, first off, that would have been, you'd probably need a bit of a different angle of the throw, but that would have been, you talk about things you never seen before. About Hayden Birdsong, what did you think when you saw that second ball on the field?
Honestly, I didn't see it until I was like, how is the ball? I thought it was the ball that was thrown home. And I was like, why is the ball all the way out there? And then I realized Patty had the other ball. I was like, what is going on? And then I was like, I don't know. I had no idea.
You ever seen that in the game before?
No, I have not. I have not seen that.
What's going on here?
The confusion in Hayden's voice is so great. It's just, why is another ball out here? Just blue screening on what to do there. What everyone said, though, I've never seen that before, which is good because it means that people aren't doing that very often. So I guess that's a positive takeaway we can have.
Birdsong is, of the young pitchers, he's my favorite.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
everybody resonates with a different guy. I know, like, if you were to compare these guys to, and I don't mean to go here, maybe over time.
Well, you already started. Let's do it.
But the Matt Cain, Madison Bumgarner, Tim Lincecum, I know that you are a huge fan with Cain. A lot of people love Timmy, obviously. A lot of people love Bumgarner.
All legends.
With these three guys, and I'm talking about Roop, and I'm talking about Harrison, and I'm talking about this kid, Birdsong. I like Birdsong. There's just something about that dude, the way he's wired.
Steve Risotto had a great take that I agree with. He's the guy you throw out in game 2 of a playoff series.
Yeah.
Like, he's looking like a guy who he could be a great number 2 starter. He could maybe be an ace someday. I mean, you say big 3. I mean, I'll lump Logan Webb into that because I think Webb's going to be around here for a while as well. Him, Birdsong, Roop.
I mean, it's
Harrison.
the young pitchers.
Yeah, you got a great young trio there under the tutelage of one Logan Webb there. Yeah, no, I'm all in on that triarchy of pitchers. Again, it was a rough start for Harrison last week. He talked about that a little. You'll hear from him in about 48 minutes. Kyle Harrison will replay that interview that I had with him last night. But yeah, again, I'm big on Birdsong too. He can get that upper 90s fastball too. He's got a lot of movement on the pitch. That curveball is absolutely filthy. That he got. Who is the guy that he? I said earlier. He got Ozuna on one. He got Nick Allen on the curveball a couple times as well too. So I mean that third inning that Birdsong had last night. Again, he gets the strikeout on Harris, the strikeout on Allen. Acuna walked, and then he got Austin Riley on the fastball, painted that corner there. Moments like that just really showcase just how special this kid is. And he's still, I think, he's still growing into his talent, and he's only going to get better here in his second year.
Yeah, and again, just to get back to sort of that comparison with the 3 pitchers that really, to me, is what transformed that dynastic run by the Giants. Could we be seeing something similar to that with these 3? Now, obviously, it's still very early.
When you got the bullpen too coming along, because remember, Dan, those Dynasty Giants teams, they were, the pitching, everyone talks about them, but it was the core four in the bullpen. It was Javi, it was Jeremy Affeldt, it was Sergio Romeo, it was Santiago Casilla, and it was that first time Brian Wilson adding, being that party of five guy. The bullpen matters too, and the Giants have got an incredibly great, dynamic, young bullpen as well. Ryan Walker is going to be here for a while. Camilo Doval seems to have found himself now. Tyler Rogers is the old man at 34. He'll probably be around for a long time, though. He's kind of got the delivery that will keep him here. Eric Miller, it's been bumpy at times, but I like him long term. And, of course, I'm bearing the lead here because everyone's yelling the same name right now. Randy Rodriguez. He is looking like the best reliever in the bullpen right now. So between the pitching, those trios, young starters, and the young guys you got in this bullpen and, the longevity you get from Tyler Rogers the next few years, yeah, there's a lot of really great pitching that you can build on this team that Buster has to work with. And as we kind of put a bow on this Buster Posey conversation, that's going to be the big challenge is how does Buster not let this great pitching go to waste? Because that's what it felt like during that 16-game stretch. The Giants still went 8-8 during that 16-game stretch where they couldn't score 4 runs or more than 4 runs. And the pitching is going to have a regression at some point. And it's just the most frustrating thing was just seeing all these 2-1, 1-0 games that they're losing. It's like these are the wins you need to bank now for when the pitching is struggling later on.
You mentioned Ryan Walker. Now, I know he's been good, but I'm sticking an asterisk next to that name right now.
Something's off with him. I've been high on Ryan Walker. I think he's a great guy. He's come on Garlic Fries and Baseball Guys. Very grateful for him to do that, but something is not right with him. He had the back injury in spring training that kind of hampered him a little bit. He insisted that he's past that, but as anyone who has ever had a back ever in life knows, which I believe everybody in life has had a back, once that thing starts to act up, it doesn't really just stop. It definitely doesn't just stop after a month or so. That back injuries are forever. I am 32 years old. When I turned 30, I was given my back injury as is tradition. And then he was pretty wild when he came in. He got the strikeout on Acuna when he came in the 6th. But then, yeah, he got a little bit wild there. Riley got the base hit there. Olsen got the home run, and he was scuffling there. He really was. Yeah, I'm a little concerned. I think I don't know if it's the back. I don't know if it's mechanical. I don't know if it's a mix of the two. But Ryan Walker is not right now.
Which is why the Giants, to their credit, have so much depth. And I think they're going to need all of it. Because Miller hasn't been very good. Ryan Walker hasn't been very good. And
Walker's usually been much better at home, too, which is all the more concerning to see that outing last night.
And Bivens, he battles, but I don't know how much confidence I have in him, especially coming into that situation last night. So,
he had a bases loaded situation in the 9th inning. He got out of it.
He did well.
He's a good strike thrower.
Pitch.
But they've been using him kind of as like a long guy or a mop-up guy at times, bringing him into these high-leverage situations. I bumped into Andrew Baggerly in the press box. He's back on the beat now, and it's like, Bivens, this is an interesting move. And he's like, he's a good strike thrower. We'll see what happens. And, of course, Bivens gets out of it. But, that was a tough situation he came into for a guy who's not been in a whole lot of high-leverage situations. And he came through. So, yeah, credit to him.
Yeah, and I think what's going to help is I do believe that Kyle Harrison's going to get to that bullpen. And when Verlander's ready to come back, which is pretty imminent, as I understand. And so you're going to need all of these guys. Depth is key right now because I don't know of a starting rotation that at some point somebody doesn't go down. And I'm not certainly wishing that on the Giants, but typically that's what happens. You'll miss a guy or two. Hopefully it's not for an extended period of time, which is why having Kyle Harrison and all of these bodies is a good thing for the Giants going forward.
Bivens, you can get some length out of him. He started some games last year. Tristan Beck also is a guy who can give you not a full starter's workload, but if things really fell apart and you need an emergency starter, he could give you a spot start where he can give you 2-3 innings, maybe even 4 if he can keep them clean. But again, you got lengthy arms in this bullpen. And then you also got Jordan Hicks for when he comes back, he'll be available to provide some pitching and innings as well. So again, I'll credit Buster this. He's established a great depth of pitching here because you got some great arms in the minor leagues that you can go to as well between Carson Seymour or Carson Wisenhunt or and the other guys who are down there right now slinging it for the River Cats right now. So, yeah, there are options. There is depth with the pitching, and again, credit the Giants front office and Buster Posey for having that depth.
Well, all the more reason why they got a hit. Because
I know it just comes down. You can't waste it.
Yeah, and bullpens go from year to year. Now I know they're good this year, and it could be a blueprint for the foreseeable future. But you never know, which is why I think you got to push your chips into the middle of the table and cash in on this year. And while the pitching is good, you got to live for today. You've got to go and get somebody. They need a player or two that can hit the baseball. That's just where the Giants are at right now.
And the good news is I don't think they need to just completely go out and get the blockbuster trade that people are going to want them to get. Again, we keep throwing around Ryan O'Hearn, who's having a very good season right now, hitting over 330 for the Orioles. He's doing great right now. But that's not like the blockbuster super. Like, no one's going to be like, oh, if Ryan O'Hearn's in the lineup, I got to get down there. And again, not trying to knock Ryan O'Hearn, but a lot of people are going to want the superstar acquisition, and I don't know who the superstar player on the trading block is going to be at this trade deadline. But my point is, like, a few years ago in 2022, it was you can't give up Kyle Harrison for Juan Soto. In 2023, the hypothetical was if Shohei is on the trading block, you can't give up Marco Luciano for him. I don't think I don't think Bryce Eldridge is going to get into any of those conversations, but I don't know if there's a player of that caliber that's going to force us into the do you trade Bryce Eldridge or not conversation. You can make just I don't want to say a marginal move, but just like a second tier move to boost this line. I mean, the production at first base has been so bad this year, Dan, that if you just got a replacement level production, that's going to be a massive boost to this lineup. That's just how much of a black hole first base has been. So a guy like a Ryan O'Hearn, yeah, that could be enough to really lift this team up to the next level. And you might not have to give up anything that you're going to miss to make a move like that happen.
Yeah, I think you have to give up something to get something.
Well, obviously you have to give up something, but like Eldridge and Wisenhunt are the top two prospects in the Giants farm system right now. You don't need to give those two. You don't need to give either one of those guys up for a Ryan O'Hearn.
Well, we'll see, but I do think that they have to make a move. Well, let me phrase it to you this way. You mentioned Kyle Harrison. Who's untouchable right now that is on that staff, currently on that staff? If you're Buster Posey, who are you saying if it's
it's Hayden Birdsong?
If it's the Baltimore Orioles, because a lot of these teams are actually going to reach out to the Giants. Why? Because the Giants have pitching and they have young pitching and they have a lot of it, right? And so if it's the Orioles on line 2 and you're Buster Posey, who is it that when they say, is this guy available, are you saying, sorry, man, are you going Paul Skeens? Because there was that declaration a couple of weeks back. Forget about it. Skeens is not. I don't care how bad we are. And by the way, they are wasting that dude's career. I hope he does not turn out to be the next Mike Trout, because that dude's having an epic season, but he's being lost out there in Pittsburgh.
If Paul Skeens is smart, he won't sign that extension with the Pirates, and he'll hit the free agent market in a few years, and he will cash in there. Same with O'Neal Cruz, because the Pirates, they're just kind of in, we're just trying to have fun mode. That's not a serious organization. But yeah, in terms of just who would be untouchable, honestly, Dan, I kind of told myself after what has gone down with Harrison in 22, went down with Luciano in 23, I kind of told myself I don't want to marry myself to any prospect ever again, because when you think of prospects that have been traded away in this century for the Giants, the last 25 years, they've traded guys away. How many of those guys that they've traded away have actually come back?
Zach Wheeler.
But that took a minute to come together. First, he had to go and piddle around with the Mets for a little bit before eventually finding himself with the Phillies later on. Yeah, that one hurts, but Giants fans don't really think about Zach Wheeler that much because after they traded him, they won 2 more championships. So, but what other prospect that they've traded away has ever returned to haunt them? It's very rare that happens. So, and again, if they had traded Kyle Harrison away for Juan Soto, no one would have missed Kyle Harrison, even if Juan Soto had left via free agency, because Harrison hasn't, as we're going to hear from soon, as much as I like him, he was billed as a frontline starter. He's looking more like a back of the rotation starter, which those guys are still very useful. Jonathan Sanchez was a great back of the rotation starter. Certainly won championships with them, but you're not retiring his number. You're not singing songs of his greatness. He's not going to be a statue guy. When you think top prospects, you think guys who are going to be carrying this team for a while. And that's what Bryce Eldridge could potentially look at. So this is all a long-winded way of saying that Bryce is probably the only guy where it's like, if the Orioles call up and say, hey, Ryan O'Hearn for Bryce Eldridge, I'm going, how about Bryce Eldridge for Gunnar Henderson? And then the Orioles would probably hang up at that point. Like, if the Giants are moving Bryce Eldridge, it is for a dude of that caliber.
So, if I'm to understand you correctly, Kyle Harrison, you would part with.
I think Kyle Harrison, yeah, he would be on the block. I think, honestly, Hayden Birdsong, like, as much as we love him, I think if for the right move, again, I don't know if Hayden Birdsong for Ryan O'Hearn is the
not
move,
for O'Hearn,
but I don't.
Because
like,
O'Hearn, you have to keep in mind, is a rental.
Exactly.
It's an expiring contract.
Like Harrison for O'Hearn, I don't think that works. But it's not a Harrison for Gunnar Henderson either. So he's somewhere. You need a player somewhere between an unmovable player like Gunnar Henderson and a very good and movable player in Ryan O'Hearn. That's where, if you got a name, like that's where the Hayden Birdsong name would come up.
I have a name for you.
What do you got?
So you're familiar. There's talk that the Boston Red Sox are sellers. Now, I don't know why the hell they would do this, but it's been bannered about. Are you familiar with Jarren Duran?
I am familiar with
Jarren Duran. If the Red Sox are like, we need pitching and I need young pitching, I need Hayden Birdsong and I need Black, or you got to package me. Well, we'll start with Birdsong. Are you pulling that trigger?
If it was Duran for Birdsong, straight up. See Duran again. He's hitting 274 right now, 4 home runs on the season. Again, still a very good baseball player. Last year, this guy hit 285 with 21 home runs. He's kind of on the up and up right now.
Bro, he's a star. He's must-watch baseball.
If you could get Duran for Birdsong straight up, yeah, I'm probably pulling that trigger to get the outfield help there, and then you're figuring out first base after that. Yeah, so I would absolutely, that's probably a good like middle, like, because Duran's probably not at the level of Gunnar Henderson in terms of not being moved, but he's definitely better than Ryan O'Hearn in terms of being a difference maker. So yeah, I would say that's a good comp there.
They probably want more than Hayden Birdsong. You're probably having to give up.
Well, maybe you throw in you got a James Tibbs, maybe you got a Dakota Jordan, maybe you got a Mason Black, maybe it is a Wisenhunt and Birdsong, that would be a pretty bold one there. If you threw your best young pitchers there, that would be a tough one there. We got a couple minutes here. I want to get the Bryce check in because I want to talk about Bryce Eldridge on the other side. So Steven, do you have our weekly Bryce check?
Yeah, so this is a big Bryce check. I know it's only our second one, but there's some big developments that have happened since last week, and those developments are that Bryce Eldridge is officially one step away from contributing at the major league level, and it could happen soon. He had a strong few weeks, as we know, in Double-A. We talked about it last week. His home run to straightaway center field, left on left, over the batter's eye or off the batter's eye. Either one would have been impressive. And the Giants have called him up now to Triple-A. They called him up on Tuesday, Triple-A Sacramento. And he was in the River Cats lineup on Wednesday. He's played 3 games in Sacramento. And guys, he's 3 for 10, a home run, 7 RBIs, and it just wasn't any home run. It came with the bases loaded.
The 1-0, and a swing and a drive to deep right. Corona's back, and it's gone! It's a grand slam for Bryce Eldridge. His first Triple-A home run is a grand slam. And it gives the River Cats the lead here in Sugarland. Eldridge crushed it, and there was no doubt about it.
No doubt about it. That's Zach Bayruti on the call, the voice of the River Cats, who actually joined Willard and Dibbs yesterday to talk all things Bryce Eldridge, his development, all going on in the Bryce world.
Right?
A little bit. Yeah. Giants always have guys that sound like Fleming. Joe Rizzo, maybe a little bit of Fleming in him too. So, but
I just love that there's an outfielder by the last name of Corona. That's who you need to get on the show.
I want to hang on the beach with him. More of that on the other side. Again, we're going to talk about Bryce Eldridge. How important is it for the Giants to call him up? When does he get called up? Is he the savior that for the Giants and this offense? More of that and more on the other side, again, is brought to you by Fremont Bank. Here for you, here for good.
Chapman's got to hurry, and they got him! Just by a half a step. Unbelievable.
Now back to the Orange and Black Weekend Wrap. The best Giants talk in the Bay on 95.7 The Game.
Dwayne Kuiper on the call there. Matt Chapman with another just incredible defensive play there in the 10th inning. A little slow dribbler, and any other third baseman probably is not making that play, but he does get that play to get out of the inning, to get the Giants into the bottom of the 10th inning, where they would eventually win 5-4 over the Braves. On the walk-off wild pitch, Tyler Fitzgerald scoring the winning run, and Wilmer Flores, because of course it's Wilmer Flores, was at the plate when it happened. Dan, I know we're talking baseball. It's the Orange and Black Weekend Wrap. Sam Lubman, Dan Devone, Steven Risotto on the board. I got to play a non-baseball thing here for you. The other night, did you catch Game 1 of the NBA Finals? Tyrese Halliburton doing it again, just snatching souls out there.
Didn't my Knicks in Game 1?
It's... so was it kind of nice seeing another team suffer just as much, or does it not make it any better?
No.
Yeah, I guess so.
Halliburton, my God. Anytime he's on the opposing team, you just feel they have a shot, and regardless of whatever's happening in the game.
Yeah. And first off, anyone who says that small market finals are no fun, that was an incredibly fun Game 1. I was at my mom's house, actually. I went over to her place for dinner, and she's kind of so-so when it comes to watching basketball when it's not the Warriors. But minute and a half left, I'm like, oh, wow, we got a 3-point game here. We're both standing in her living room watching this game, just completely invested in it. Halliburton hits that shot. We're both losing our minds because that just happened. But we may have been losing our minds. You may have been losing your mind. All of Pacers Nation may have been losing their minds. Nobody was losing their minds more than the guys who were on the Korean broadcast for that game. Dan, I got to play this for you.
자, 언더독인 인디애나가 익숙한 상황을 맞이한다. 할리버튼 버텨내는데요.
No one is more hype than those two guys.
That made my day.
I love that. I got to do it one more time.
자, 언더독인 인디애나가 익숙한 상황을 맞이한다. 할리버튼 버텨내는데요.
It's like like he's doing WhatsApp. Like, oh my God.
Well, let me just tell you that basketball in Asia right now. So I'm doing some work for a company actually run by one Ron Artest, if you remember him, the former Los Angeles Lakers.
Meta World Peace. And so he has this company called 37 Partners. And so I do this show with the coach of the Chinese national team. And the reason is that basketball in Asia right now, their fans are as rabid, if not more so, for NBA basketball. There's first for China. In fact, there's a new league that's just starting up, and Steven Tsai, who owns the Brooklyn Nets, is invested in this. It's called the AUBL. Asian basketball is like, their passion is real. I'm surprised that these guys were they courtside. They were calling that thing remote. I have no idea. They got
how, first of all, do you find that?
You know who it was? It was our friend over at KCBS, nice guy Stephen Langford. I get an email from him, hey, check this out. And it's like, oh, I love me a good foreign language call to an exciting event. Wow! I kind of wonder, do you think other countries play American calls? Oh, listen to this American call. And then it's just like Dave Fleming calling a walk-off home run or something like that. I wonder if other countries get a kick out of our broadcast.
Well, I guess they would if we were broadcasting a traditional Asian sport. Where they would be like, well, that's not the way we typically do things.
For baseball,
I guess the beauty of that call is that it's just so simplistic. It's wow.
Yeah.
Sometimes we try and find superlatives, or sometimes play-by-play guys, shout out Evan Giddings, will always try and find, not that he does this, will try and find that, that call, that's sort of their signature call. That was just raw emotion. He was just busting out a wow.
Natural.
Just a wow. Wow. It wasn't anything more than that. It was just, that wasn't him, was it?
Well, that was Howard Dean. We're going to take back the White House. I remember when that was a thing. Oh, man. 21 years ago.
Oh, God.
Oh, man. 21 years ago.
I'm going to pass away from those buttons before I have a cardiac arrest.
When Howard Dean was happening, Risotto, I think, was still in diapers. Bryce Eldridge wasn't even alive when Howard Dean was happening, as we get old here right before everyone's eyes. But that has been the name this week, Dan, that everyone has been losing their minds about. First, it was The offense is so bad. How much worse can it be with Bryce Eldridge up there, even if he's booty on defense right now? Then Bryce got called up, and he was called up to AAA on Wednesday, and you cannot tell me that was on purpose. Like Buster Posey, when he made that move, he knew how that move would be received, and he knew that when that happened, the eyes, the spotlight, and the fervor to get Bryce Eldridge up here, he had to know that was going to skyrocket when that happened. He made that move anyway, and the eyes on Bryce Eldridge are very, very locked in right now. The lights are getting very bright on him right now.
So let's cut to the chase. First of all, I think the decision was made easy. This is what you want to have happen. Somebody destroys a league, so they take the decision-making out of your hands, and that's what he did at AA.
Mm-hmm.
It's not happening at the AAA, I would say, with any of the quote-unquote prospects for the Giants. They're not like Luciano and company. Nobody's making a decision. We're like, well, we need to make room for Luis Matos because he's crushing it down there. That's not happening. So, all right, Bryce Eldridge, let's give him a couple of weeks, a month. Let's just cut to the chase there. I'll make you the GM of this baseball team. Would you bring him up sooner rather than later?
I'm probably going to lean to later because he only had, I believe, a few games, I think 8 games or something at the AAA level last year. I was listening to Zach Bayruti on with Willard and Dibbs yesterday, and he said he came up to AAA at the end of the year. You mentioned he was kind of gassed, but it was more just like, yeah, I want to get up there and kind of see what it's about, what's going on there. This is Eldridge's first real foray into AAA pitching, which is going to be a little bit better. The stuff's going to be breaking a little bit more. It's going to be a little bit nastier. It's going to be a little bit more of a challenge. I get he got the grand slam the other night, but it's a great start, and that's all that is. It is a great start. Baseball is a long game, and as much as the offense is there, I want to see how he adjusts to the better competition at the AAA level, which probably is going to go pretty well. The other thing, though, it is the defense. And the defense, from everything I've heard, is it's not big league ready. And he's going to have to get more reps there. It's not a matter of figure it out at the big league level because you're trying to win baseball games at the big league level. You can't have him, when Matt Chapman throws a scud in the dirt, he had one the other day, I think it was on Thursday, Casey Schmidt pulled it out of the dirt there. It was a great play by Schmidt. If Eldridge doesn't make that play, that's an extra base runner. And now you got, a potentially long inning brewing here. And you don't want to, put him in a situation where him not being ready is costing the team games because that's when the whole confidence issue comes up. So I think the earliest we could see Eldridge, probably sometime mid-July. That's all to say.
Wow.
Which is, you probably think I was going to say something even later. But no, again, if he could give you 3-4 weeks of plus defense down there, yeah, he could show up pretty quickly, assuming the bat is as hot as it was in that Grand Slam home run that we played there.
Yeah, I can't go there. If I'm the GM, he's not. I don't want to see him in 2025.
Really? Okay.
No,
So you're so adamant on this team needs to find a way to hit, but Eldridge can't be the solution.
No.
Okay.
No, I'm going to go out and I'm going to go get Ryan O'Hearn. I don't know. We talked about how Corbin Burns got hurt, which is wow.
Well, yeah, let's have a quick sidebar on that. I mean, that was just so unfortunate. I told you, Dan, I was doing a post game for Warriors Cavs, I think, when that news broke, and for 10 minutes I got to talk about baseball, not that absolute blowout that the Cavs.
The news broke that he'd signed the contract.
Yeah. And so instead of talking about the Ty Jerome revenge game, I got to talk about the Corbin Burns deal, and yeah, it was a bummer because you thought he could be a fixture top this rotation, but you saw that 2-year out he had in that contract, and you just knew he was going to opt out of that. Well, no, not anymore, because he's not going to come back probably until he opts in to the back 4 years there. But that's the risk when you throw big money at a pitcher who's over the age of 30.
The reason why I mention him, and that bullpen has been bad. If this team continues to reel and they become sellers, I doubt.
About the Diamondbacks?
I'm talking about Arizona with Corbin Burns now out. Zach Gallen hasn't been very good. That bullpen is terrible. If they become sellers at the deadline, if they continue to lose, Josh Naylor, how do you do?
Ooh, you think they do the in division trade?
I don't know.
That's kind of taboo these days.
I get the point I'm trying to make is that the Giants have to go get a first baseman, and it's not Bryce Eldridge. Now, listen, you could come back at me and say, well, what about Jack Caglione? If you're familiar with the kid out of Kansas City who was the big prospect who came out of the University of Florida, was drafted last year, and finds himself in the majors. In fact, I want to say that's the fourth guy that was in the 2024 draft.
They're running them
that
quick.
Is in the major leagues. But here's the difference. They played at college baseball. Now, I know you could say, well, come on, man. But
no, college matters.
Exactly. And those, especially those formative years, they are vital. Bryce Eldridge is 20.
He's 20. He's younger than Jonathan Kuminga. Think about how we talk about how young Kuminga is. He's 2 years younger.
He did the high school straight to professional baseball league.
Exactly.
And so it's different with him. And the other thing why I don't want to see him in 2025, and I do want to see Josh Naylor, I do want to see what they've cobbled together right now with Dom Smith. Yeah, it's nice for a week. To me, that's not sustainable. You got to go get your guy. But the reason why I don't want it to be Bryce Eldridge is to what you just laid out, is that if you stay in this hunt, and if it's nip and tuck with you and the Cards and whomever it is that you're battling for a wild card, maybe you're trying to walk down the Dodgers, you cannot afford, especially when we get into the dog days, you get into August or September or late July, you cannot have him kick away a game. And it's not on him, but if it's a close nip and tuck affair and he boots something at first base and where a veteran would have picked it and he loses you a game or two, that could be the difference between you getting into the postseason. And I don't mean to get overly dramatic, but that's something you have to take into consideration when you have a young guy who could be a liability defensively holding down the corner spot at first.
Especially in a playoff race that's going to be as tight as this one is, Dan. There's a lot of teams who are going to be battling for those wild card spots there because you're assuming the Dodgers are going to have a lock on the division. You're going to be battling with the Padres already. That's one wild card team. The Phillies or Mets, whoever finishes second in the NL East is going to be in it. The Cardinals are going to be in it. The Diamondbacks, I know you mentioned they could become sellers, but they still have a lot of talent on that team. They could still turn things around. Even though the Braves looked not great last night, there's still too much talent on that team. If the Braves reeled off a 10-game winning streak out of nowhere, you would not be shocked. So you can't risk losing any game. Like you can't risk these kind of mistakes. The margins are so thin. Really quick, what more do the Giants want to see from Eldridge before they call him up? We asked Zach Manassian that on Thursday on the Morning Roast. But before we hear what his answer to that was, I just want to give a quick reminder that coming up today at 12:30, which is in about less than an hour and a half, less than 2 hours, you can hear the Valkyries taking on the Las Vegas Aces, and you can hear that game here on 95.7 The Game and the Valkyries channel on the Odyssey app. Kevin Dana and Sophia Jones will have the call right here on 95.7 The Game. Also want to remind you that about 14 minutes, courtesy of the River Islands guest line, we'll be hearing from Kyle Harrison. I had a chance to catch up with him last night before the game. So chat about a lot of things, chat about how the season's going, asked him about Bryce Eldridge. And Dan, I don't know if you remember, but he caught a first pitch from Brock Purdy last year. Kyle Harrison's a big 49er fan, so absolutely I had to ask him about that. That is coming up at 11. Coming up right at this very moment, though, is what Zach Manassian wants to see from Bryce Eldridge before they call him up.
The biggest thing is still getting better defensively at first base. I had the privilege of seeing Bryce in high school, actually, scouting him, and the day I saw him, he pitched. He was basically Shohei Ohtani for his high school team. He pitched and he hit, and when he wasn't pitching, he was still hitting. So there really isn't a lot of innings experience defensively. He is getting better and better, and I think it's another player, plays very hard. He wants to be great. He himself has come out and talked about his defense and how it needs to get better, how he wants it to get better. We don't want to do him a disservice by bringing him here and you basically can't play him in the field. And I think our minor league people have done a great job with him, coaching staff in Double-A, and he'll get some new voices at Triple-A that he's familiar with. But also people like Will Clark, Joe Panic, Ron Wotus, our major league staff put a lot of work with him, put a lot of work in with him during spring training. So just continuing to shore up that defense, and then the pitching from Double-A to Triple-A probably see a little bit more spin. You get a little bit more of the crafty veterans as he just continues to round out, his offensive game and making more contact, because when he makes contact, he's obviously very dangerous.
Again, yeah. Kind of reiterates what we're saying. They need to see more from defense. He's just not quite ready to get up to that level yet. And I think it kind of goes to what I said a little bit earlier. It's just you need to get him the reps, because we know the bat is there, but hitting is only half of the game. And he's got to be capable on defense if he wants to be up at this level.
Yeah, I don't think that he's ready. Again, I'll just reiterate, I don't want to see him in 2025. I think they got to go out and get somebody, an everyday player that can produce at first base. That's all on Posey. And I think we're going to learn a lot more about Posey just in terms of how aggressive he is and whether he recognizes, as I'm sure he does, that what's happening with this team in terms of the pitching is so special and you need to capitalize on that. The bigger question, when you think about this season going into this campaign, didn't we sort of know what Yastrzemski was going to be? I mean, hasn't he sort of showed his hand? I mean,
he's kind of a fourth outfielder, really.
Really surprised, yeah. And you could say the same about Lamont Wade, but there almost is this sense of like, well, we're still going to roll him out there regardless. And so when I use the word being aggressive, again, not to go after Buster Posey, but there was an opportunity where if you wanted to really make your mark and be aggressive, I think dealing a Yastrzemski or addressing a Lamont Wade before we got to this point is something that I think is somewhat plausible if you were to make that argument.
What do you mean by dealing with them? Like moving off
moving
of
them?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean trading Yastrzemski and trading Lamont Wade before we got to this point.
I don't know how much trade value Mike Yastrzemski has. I know the Giants like having him around a lot. He plays the game the way they want him to, and from conversations I had, the approach at the plate he's had this year is much stronger. Again, I know the offense doesn't show that right now, but Yaz, again, he's a fourth outfielder
on a good team.
You mentioned Lamont Wade Jr. I mean, that's step one, was moving off Lamont Wade Jr. You're slowly seeing them kind of clear the deck for a potential Bryce Eldridge arrival. Like Dominic Smith, again, it's been a fun 3 games so far. Is he a good player? Is he not? I mean, he's a minor league journeyman. We'll see where he's at in 3 weeks from now. Loving what we're seeing so far from him. Same with Daniel Johnson. But those guys aren't long-term options. And
no, placeholders.
You knew that the Giants, I think, could tell that the Eldridge arrival was coming up quickly because there was very little discussion of them with Pete Alonso over the offseason, who could have been a great option for them. There was very little discussion about a Paul Goldschmidt or a Christian Walker, who could have been placeholders for Bryce Eldridge as well this year, while also giving you plus offensive production. So they are kind of clearing the way for that. But again, it's all coming down to the defense with Eldridge. And if it's this much, I mean, we got Travis Ishikawa was on with Steiny Guru earlier this week. He's the hitting coach down in Sacramento, and he just kind of doubled down on just kind of what we're saying here, Dan.
I think his biggest challenge is just going to continually be on the defensive side of the ball. Not that he's not good, but, when we came up to us in his draft year, he was playing outfield. First base is really new for him. He just started playing it last year in April, spring training of last year. So he barely has a little over a year of experience at first base. And, he's grown up his whole life hitting in the batter's box, but he hasn't gotten a ton of reps at first base. And so just as he gets to AAA, and the game will probably move a little bit faster in AAA. Guys kind of are really good at slowing the game down up there, and you get a lot of guys with big league experience. So I think that'll be the biggest challenge for him is just being able to handle himself on the defensive side of the ball. 'Cause we all know the offense is going to be there.
Really quick, I know Rizzo, you got my ear. You had a thought about Eldridge's defense. What do you got?
Yeah, well, Travis Ishikawa kind of just stole my thunder a little bit, but it's easy to forget that when Bryce Eldridge was drafted out of high school, he pitched too. So he spent all of his time in high school never playing first base. He was a hitter, like a DH, and he was a pitcher. So this isn't just a guy that's being developed at first base. This is a guy who's made a complete position change to first base. And I think we should treat it as such. And he played a little bit of outfield when he first came up, but this is a process that is kind of insane if you think about it. And I don't think a lot of fans and a lot of people that want to see Bryce Eldridge right now have that context, is that he did not even play first base in high school. He has no college experience at all, so he couldn't play first base there. And he's just learning the position. So this isn't just he's not a great defender. That's true, but he's not a great defender because he's never played there. So just some context to throw out.
Yeah, and the big league level is not a great place to learn how to play a position. That's just not how it is. And I know this is the conversation that Joe Shasky and I have had on the Morning Roast at times. It's just, could it be any worse than what Lamont Wade Jr. is doing? Yeah, probably. And that's no bueno. I know it seems crazy. Like, for as much as we would dog on Lamont Wade Jr. for whatever, he was capable at first base. Was he going to win a Gold Glove? No. Was he a plus defender? No. But he could handle the position enough to where you'll put him there, and all right, we'll see what happens. Yeah, I don't even think Eldridge is at that level yet, and it makes it all that much easier to keep him down to AAA to get the reps at first base.
I think just getting back to Farhan, another reason why I just had enough of him was, to your point, why you can't, how difficult it is to learn a new position while you're at the major league and or minor league high level. And that's what they were doing to Luciano. And just like, well, let's just move him over to second base, even though he's never played that position. And trying to do that at the major league level. I was like, my God, you guys are out of your mind. Just getting it, we heard from Travis Ishikawa, and I think, I don't know, I want to say, I read this just recently, and somebody was talking about Lamont Wade and their greatest memories of Lamont Wade, as he's now obviously no longer a San Francisco Giant. It's interesting that you played Travis Ishikawa because they talked about Game 5 of the Los Angeles Dodgers series. And that was, if you'll recall, it was Lamont Wade followed by Wilmer Flores and those terrible calls where you got rung up. And maybe with ABS coming to Major League Baseball, the automated balls and strikes.
Well, that was a check swing that they got him on. They said that
Flores was a check swing.
Yeah.
But Lamont Wade was a bad call. Yeah. But the Travis Ishikawa relationship, if you'll recall, 2 pitches prior to that, he had his Travis Ishikawa moment.
He almost had probably the greatest walk-off home run. It would have been the greatest walk-off home run since 1951. Because he would have done it against the Dodgers, which means would have had more weight.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the conversation he would have had. Travis Ishikawa or Lamont Wade Jr. What was the better series-ending walk-off?
Well, you went Bobby Thompson, though.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's Bobby Thompson, there's Ishikawa, I did Bobby Thompson because that was a pennant and the Dodgers. So, I mean, what's the bigger one, the pennant or beating the Dodgers? That's the conversation we could have had in that alternate reality there. And, yeah, no, I thought a lot about that Lamont Wade. That at-bat still haunts me.
Well, guys, we actually have the Korean call of that Lamont Wade Jr. home run.
자, 언더독인 인디애나가 익숙한 상황을 맞이한다. 하리버튼
That excited over a foul ball?
Yeah, they were just, the wow was they thought it was gone, but they're like, wow, it wasn't gone. So I think we're all in agreement here. The defense, until it's up to snuff, we just, again, the word of the day on this show has been patience, and how patient Giants fans will be with Buster, with the offense, with waiting for Bryce Eldridge, with waiting for this Kyle Harrison interview that's going to be coming up on the other side. I had a chance to chat with him last night. We're going to do that again on the other side at 11 o'clock. And that will be courtesy of the River Islands guest line. And then we'll wrap up the show a little bit, maybe talk about today's game. And then I got some Elliot Ramos questions because, again, what he did on Wednesday night got me thinking, if you're looking for a spark plug, why not Elliot Ramos? So think about that for a little bit. Kyle Harrison on the other side, brought to you by Fremont Bank. Fremont Bank, here for you. Here for good.
Wow!
Yay!
Now back to the Orange and Black Weekend Wrap on 95.7 The Game.
We are back here on the Wrap. Sam Lubman here. We got Dan Devone, Steve Risotto on the board. In just a couple moments, though, we're going to be hearing from Kyle Harrison. Had a chance to catch up with him last night before the game. So talked about a bevy of things. Talked about how just fun this week has been for the team and the wild highs and lows. Talked a little bit about Bryce Eldridge. And then, again, he did receive a first pitch from Brock Purdy last year, and he is a big Niner fan. So asked him a little bit about that as well. So right now, courtesy of the River Islands guest line, here is my chat with Kyle Harrison last night. All right, I am joined here with Kyle Harrison, Giants starting pitcher, the local kid, the pride of De La Salle here on a wonderful Friday evening here at Oracle Park. And Kyle, how you doing this evening, man?
Oh, doing great. A little windy this afternoon, but looking for a dub tonight, so doing well.
There you go. All right, so to start things off here, a little fun one here. Yesterday on our station, Robbie Ray came on our afternoon show, and somehow the concept of pineapple on pizza was brought up, and Robbie was for it. He's down with pineapple on pizza. We asked Dave Fleming about it this morning. He said it was allowable, so as this progression goes, now you're up. Where are you on pineapple on pizza?
Yeah, that's a tricky topic, because I think growing up I was a big no go on the pepperoni on pizza, but
what, pepperoni on pizza?
I mean the pineapple on the pizza. Okay, but as I've been growing older, I've been starting to like it a little more. I've been able to add the pepperoni to it. That's why it was in my head already, and then especially jalapenos as well. So pepperoni, jalapeno, pineapple. That's a sneaky climbing up there on the charts in my list. So I think it's a go.
Okay, all right. Do you have an absolutely not topping that you'll put on pizza, or that you don't want on your pizza?
That's tough. I like anything, but I'd say anchovies. I'm not a big anchovy guy or whatever.
You like fish on pizza?
Fish on pizza. I'd go on there.
For me, black olives too is another one. I will pick them off like a child if I need to.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about baseball though. So Wednesday, your last start, was a pretty eventful, evening for you guys. Let's start off with you. 4 1/3 innings, 5 runs, but I think the eye test I thought told a better story than the stat line. But the last pitch you threw of the night was lined right back at you and off of you. How sore were you the next day in that spot there?
Yeah, that was some fun treatment on that area for sure. But was definitely a little sore. But played catch today and it was coming out pretty good. So we're on the right track. And I think just the trainers in the training room needled it and took good care of it, massaged it, and trying to get all the inflammation out. So yeah, not ideally how you want to end a game and walk off the mound, but glad I'm feeling good.
Did you have a welt there the next day, or?
Oh yeah, but it wasn't too bad. It was just a little bit of discoloration, but I think they got most of the bones, so it should be good.
Is that something that's always kind of on a pitcher's mind, just a ball coming back, or is that something you got to block that out and just not think about it?
Yeah, normally I never block. I mean, I never really think about it too much. You're trying to make the pitch, and ultimately, I got to be a little quicker once I release to get ready to field it and protect myself. So definitely glad it wasn't anywhere else, but saw it hit the ground first. So part of me wanted to, go and tackle it and make a play. Just like you said, nothing was really going my way Wednesday, so I was like, trying to make something happen. And, sure enough, bounced into the right field.
So one of the things that did happen before the game was Buster Posey, president of baseball operations, he kind of, I guess, almost challenged the hitters a bit. He kind of said, it's go time when it comes to the offense here. Obviously, you're a pitcher, so it's a little bit different, but, I'm just kind of curious, when the president of baseball operations says something like that, it's go time, how do those words kind of reverberate throughout the clubhouse?
Yeah, I'd say it's, I think I said this in my post game too. I think it's just like that hunger, and we felt it from the guys that got here, from Dom, and just, everyone else pulling for each other, kids, and everyone else, man. They were hungry, and they showed up, and they were playing the game with their feet on fire, and that's just the message that, he wanted to send us. So, it's go time.
Yeah.
You got to go. And, can't sit back and let guys roll over. You got to go out there and make plays and do the right thing.
And then Elliott gets that big double, gets you guys that 5th run, ties the game. He was fired up on second base. I'm watching at home. I'm ready to run through a wall for the guy. How fired up was the dugout after that double there?
Yeah, well, I was in the training room.
You working on that welt, I guess.
Some ice and some needles in my elbow, so I was fired up once he got that hit. But I imagine they were jazzed up out here, man. The whole training room was yelling and screaming out, so we were pulling for him. And I mean, you saw the emotion that he had on second. It's a like I say, just a big breath of fresh air, that, we could do this and we're right in ball games.
So after games, there's about a 10-minute or so, 10-15 minute period before we get into the clubhouse. We do the manager, talk with Bob first, then we go in. That 10-15 minutes before everyone else kind of came in, though, what was that atmosphere like in the clubhouse? What can you say kind of about how you guys were celebrating that win? Because that had to feel good that night.
It was awesome. I mean, we do a big player of the game and picture of the game and stuff like that. So everyone was hyping each other up, and even me, I was happy for the guys. I didn't have the day I'd like, but the team got the win. So that's all that matters at the end of the day, and they picked my butt up. So really thankful for them, and just shows that we could come back from anything. We were down 5-0, and just like that, we're back. Yeah, because that was something you guys at the beginning of the year. You were mid to late innings. You guys were a very dangerous team, and so being able to do that again, how confident does this team feel when it's 5th, 6th inning, you guys are down a run or two? What's that confidence like when you guys truly feel like, oh, yeah, we got this? Yeah, I mean, it's right there. We're in every game. I think that's the biggest thing with our bullpen, with our hitters, with our starting pitching staff, and we got the tools to do it. So I mean, it's just about going out there, staying consistent every day, and just trusting each other. That's the biggest thing. Trusting each other to pick each other up, and never press. That's the biggest thing. Definitely. And then so talk about Elliott again. So you got two veteran guys on this team, and Chappie and Willie, who provide some great emotional leadership on this team. Do you see Elliott kind of rising up that ranks too in terms of just being like that guy who ignites this lineup here? For sure, especially with what he's doing on the lineup right now. I think that speaks for itself. And, that's slowly moving into the clubhouse, and confidence is starting to build in him. So it's great to see. He's pumping up other guys, and same with Chappie over here and Willie. So everyone's pulling for each other. That's the biggest thing, and that ultimately leads in the late innings and late game situations that we're just going to try to pass that baton and keep going. Awesome. So I know for us Giants fans on the outside, this felt like a very emotional week. Just from Tuesday night, how that game went, need details on that one, to how the game ended yesterday, Camilo Doval getting his 100th save. You guys got the split with the Padres. What can you say kind of about just the emotions on this team and in this clubhouse throughout this week and the ups and downs that you guys went through this week? Yeah, I think it's baseball. I think that's the biggest way to say, whether it's a bad start, whether it's a bad play, a bad inning, a bad at bat, you're always going to get another chance and another opportunity. So it's just staying even keeled in those moments and not trying to ride the roller coaster. I think, a lot of times you just, you start to, feel like you're under the microscope, and we're right in it. We're right where we need to be. We just need to take care of business, one at bat, one pitch at a time, and that's been the message. Awesome. Kyle Harrison's joining us here on the Orange and Black Weekend Wrap. So, coming out of spring training this year, you were coming out of the bullpen for the first time. Yeah. What was that transition like for you, going from starter to reliever? Definitely different. I remember when I first came out of spring training, it was a little different. Didn't know the routine exactly. Just kind of going out there and just trying to figure it out. And felt like I figured out a pretty good routine to switch to the bullpen, and ultimately comes down to the same thing. I think just going out there and beating your butt off. And ultimately tried taking that experience that I learned from the pen on to the starter now, and taking that same intensity. Yeah. So what are some of the lessons that you learned from the bullpen you're able to take to the mound? What can you kind of share about those lessons? I'd say just in terms of getting loose and just always stay ready. You never know when your name's going to get called. That was the biggest shock to me. It's like that phone rings and it's like, all right, get hot. And that was something new for me. Needed to figure out something to get me going pretty quick, and also just throwing off the mound too. You never need as much as you think, just because you're going to go out there and throw in the game, and you never know how many you're going to throw out there. So definitely just a few things that I've learned, but picking other guys' brains out there that have been down there for a long time. So same thing. Comes on getting outs, Do you feel like going to the bullpen made you a better starter? Yeah, in a way. Yeah, I think so. I think instilled that kind of aggressiveness that I've always had, but it has to come out in those late innings when you're pitching, because you can't just come out and walk a guy and Melvin's going to be able to step on the pull you. So that's just kind of the biggest thing I've realized, and trying to take that with me out to the starting pitcher's mound and throw every pitch like my last, man. That's it. I was kind of curious, when the manager goes out to pull a starter, sometimes it's a very quick exchange, sometimes
he kind of lingers a bit, then he takes the ball. What can you say can you share kind of what Bob will sometimes say to you when he's coming to take you out of a game? Does he ever say anything, or?
Yeah, it depends. Usually when he comes and gets you, it's not the best moment. You usually give up a hit or something, walk the guy. So normally it's like, all right, good job today. You did what you could. Get ready for the next one. Or stuff like that. Words of encouragement to kind of cheer you up in that moment. But if it's a good pull, then it's like, all right, good job today. This guy's going to take care of business for you. So I know it's very simple. Yeah.
So sometimes when other people mound meetings, obviously if the pitching coach comes out or if just kind of the guys on the infield, how often is it when the pitching coach comes out, he's giving you like a, hey, your release point's off, or you need to raise your arm saw a little bit? How often is it that conversation? How often is he just kind of coming out there to give you a breather? And what are they saying when it's just kind of giving you a breather to slow things down?
Yeah, I think it's really just that. It's them coming out telling you, hey, I'm giving you a breather. I see you breathing heavy out there, just trying to slow you down, trying to find your release point. Like you said, if my release point's a little low, he could give me a subtle heads up, but he's not going to try to get too mechanical with me out there, because ultimately we don't want to be thinking about mechanics when we're on the mound, and we just want to execute pitches. So no, it's just that, man. It's slowing that down and just honestly giving time to the bullpen guy for him to get ready as well. Mm-hmm. So no, it's a little bit of both, but it's more to slow the pace down and control your breathing and get ready to execute some pitches.
Yeah, do they ever maybe say something just to kind of loosen you up and laugh a little bit, just to kind of keep you from getting too tight up there?
For sure, especially if you're kind of in a cruising in a good situation, got like 2 outs, just trying to loosen it up to get you out of that inning.
What's the funniest thing that's been said in a mound meeting that loosened you up?
I'd have to think probably in the minors. I want to say one of my coaches just said something completely random. I forget what it's about, but it was just about like something about what are you doing for dinner tonight or something like that, just to kind of clear your mind, get it off for a second, then relock in.
So you mentioned the minors there. That gives me a good excuse to jump into some news that came out of your minor leagues this week, and that was Bryce Eldridge was elevated from AA to AAA. Did you ever get a chance to face him in spring training at all, or work with him in spring training, and what were your impressions of him?
Yeah, no, I got to see him a decent amount. I haven't gotten to face him yet, but he's an impressive young kid, man. Just the way he goes about his business. He's always working hard, pretty mature for his age. I think just in terms of the bat, it speaks for itself. He already hit a home run last night or something like that, grand slam I saw. So, no, man, he's impressive, and he's just got to keep doing what he's doing and stay on that course.
We've been talking about him ad nauseum at the station this week. Mm-hmm. Do you guys in the clubhouse ever see the videos like, oh wow, look what this guy did, or do you talk about him a lot, or is it just kind of like you see a video, you share it, and then that's kind of it?
Yeah, that's kind of it right now. We see it, and we know he's a great player, and he's going to be great for us here. So we're not too worried. I think we just want to let him go out there and do his thing, and not rush him to some extent, but I think just let him play ball, and it'll speak for itself when he's ready.
Yeah. So I remember I chatted with you last year, kind of talked about how Logan Webb's kind of been a great kind of veteran mentor for you on this team, but then this team went out and signed Justin Verlander for this offseason. What's it been like having a future surefire Hall of Famer, world champion, multiple Cy Youngs? What's it like having a guy like that right down the way from you in the clubhouse?
It's pretty cool. Pretty cool, definitely. Got a few pitches on this staff too, along with Robbie and Webb too, that are pretty cool. But no, just the fact that he's been doing it for so long, and he's just still hungry. That's the cool thing. He wants to be out there and start. No, he's looking good, man.
Yeah. What's something you've learned from him already this year?
That's tough. I'd say just kind of the in-between routines, what really to pick and choose to work on, just the way he kind of was thinking about, talking to hitters after his live at-bats today. It was kind of cool to just sit in and see what questions he was asking the hitters and off of certain pitches, and just to see how he thinks. That's honestly probably been the coolest thing, because you've got to be thinking a different way to be doing this for 20-plus years.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, I got to change, adapt, stuff
exactly.
like that. So had you on, I chatted with you last April actually, and obviously a lot's changed since then. And one of the things we talked about was the 49ers. So you're a big Niner fan, and you advocated Brock Purdy getting the bag. Yep. And Since then, Brock, he got his contract, but you finally got to meet Brock Purdy. You got to receive a first pitch from Brock Purdy last year. What was that experience like? What was it like when you found out that you were going to be the guy getting the first pitch from Brock?
It was sweet. I was excited. Too excited that I muffed it. I looked bad. But it came out a little shadows. Now I know what the hitters deal with, at the times at the start of the ball game, but it came out a little hotter than I anticipated. So he told me it was coming out hot. I didn't believe him, and it sure did. It got on me, but it was a pleasure to meet him. He was such a great dude and so down to earth. He's from Arizona too, so I live out there in the off season, so we got to strike it up and talk a little bit. So
very cool.
Really happy that he got paid, and let's go win some games.
No, seriously. Hope you get a nice bounce back season coming here. I know you're as a pitcher when you're watching him throw. I know you were definitely analyzing his delivery to some degree. What'd you think of his pitching motion? If football doesn't work out, does he have a future as a pitcher?
Hey, the arm's live. I'll tell you that. It's looking good, and we'll work on the locations, but part of that was on me. I would say I got to be ready to catch a feeder up. That's kind of my forte as well. So I got to know if it's coming.
You're not really you're not a catcher either. So.
No, that's fair. I got to make the lefties look a little better than that.
Is he the most famous professional athlete outside of baseball that you've met?
Yeah, I'd say so. I can't really think of too many other ones that I met, but Brock's pretty cool. Pretty good guy to meet.
Yeah. So I watched the video that the Giants posted of you guys, and you chatted a little bit before the first pitch. Did you have any other chance to chat with him after that, or was that it?
That was kind of it for the most part. We had to get the game started, but hopefully I'll get to chat with him at a game or something like that coming up. Try to get out there.
Yeah, hope he invites you to a Super Bowl or a playoff or a Super Bowl game.
That'd be awesome.
If you did have a chance to chat with him off camera, what would you like to chat with him about?
Yeah, probably anything. What he likes to do outside the game. If he likes to cook, if he likes to hike, whatever. I don't know. It's a tough question. I think I don't know. We'd strike up a good combo. I think we were hitting off a little.
Yeah. Well, let's just set it up anyway. See where it goes. Right.
There we go.
All right. Last one here. I'm gonna get you out of here. Got any quick thoughts on the Warriors season? How their season ended?
Yeah, hard fought. I'd say tough, but no. Anytime you're in the playoffs, I think anytime you're in the playoffs, it's a good season. I think it's hard. It's hard to win in the playoffs, especially against these young teams that are coming up, and they're looking pretty good. But no, miss Steph for sure. But I think if we had him, it'd be a little bit of a different story. But no, sucks to see, but. We'll be back.
Awesome. Well, Kyle, really appreciate you for joining me here on the Orange and Black Weekend Wrap. You've been a great guest, and we'll have to do this again sometime.
Yeah, sounds great. I'll be here.
All right, and that was my conversation with Kyle Harrison last night. We did it on the field. I like doing interviews on the field. I love having the ambiance of the ballpark there in the background. Again, that was courtesy of the River Islands guest line. But Dan, I don't know if you saw the video that the Giants posted last year of him getting the first pitch from Brock Purdy, but Brock did sail that one in pretty quick, and it skipped over the glove of Kyle Harrison, who was trying to receive it there.
Well, a lot of those guys, and I'm talking about baseball players and in particular pitchers, are oftentimes good quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I mean,
so it makes sense the other way around.
Patrick Mahomes certainly comes to mind. A lot of those guys. I'm just curious if you ever put a football in that dude's hands, whether he can wing it.
I mean, they do like to toss a football around before games.
You know where that started? You remember Andy Pettit with the New York Yankees?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
He and Roger Clemens used to work out before games. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was the Andy Pettit thing. It was the holding the glove up.
Yeah.
Him and Randy Johnson, when they were pitching against each other, they both did that. It was so cool.
And I also like seeing Kimbrel come back with his little...
the arm thing. He got DFA'd.
I know.
He came back. I guess it was his first appearance with the Braves in 11 years. Picks off Jung-hoo Lee, which let's talk about that in a second. And then, okay, you're good. Bye.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
Wow!
Yeah. I'm sure that's not the last we're going to hear that. Yeah, it's life in baseball. I thought he pitched well last night.
He did. Let's talk about that. The Jung-hoo Lee pickoff there. That was, they had a couple guys thrown out. Obviously there's the Tyler Fitzgerald one. Elliot Ramos got thrown out on the bases. The Jung-hoo Lee one, though, that was pretty brutal. What I thought happened there on that one was, how Kimbrel, he does that arm thing where he kind of leans over, he sticks his arm out kind of with the right 90-degree angle. I'm doing it on the radio as if people not on YouTube can see it. He usually does that from the full windup. He doesn't do that from the stretch. But he had Lee on first, and he went into that little arm thing that he does, which he doesn't usually do. I wonder if maybe that kind of threw Lee off a bit because he kind of did a hesitant step before jumping back to the base there on that pickoff.
Yeah, the Lee one's hard to explain because it's not as though he got picked off going back to the bag and was just late. He got hung up. I think he was trying to read Kimbrel, and to your point, he was having a hard time getting a jump or understanding what it is that Kimbrel was doing on the mound. I don't have issues. I really don't. I know it's all part of what was an ugly played game on the part of the Giants in terms of the wild pitches, getting picked off, thrown out at second by Elliot Ramos. I don't have an issue with that. And the reason is because I like aggressive baseball.
I agree.
And Fitzgerald was pushing the edge of the envelope. It's a 4-4 game. You don't want that to happen, obviously. But that's what speed is going to do, is that you're on there, especially for a team that's having a hard time producing runs, getting into scoring position, especially if you're a guy that can go. That's part of what it is that you're there to do. And the same thing with Elliot Ramos. I think Ramos just was a poor decision because it was a perfect pitch. It was almost like a pitch out. If you recall, Murphy got a fastball up and just gunned him out at second base. But I like the aggression on the part of the Giants. So I'm not going to knock him for it.
No, and I think Fitz said after the game, I didn't pull the sound, but Fitz said after the game that he got that single there, and he said that his intention was he was going to go on that next pitch. That was the plan, and unfortunately, he just ended up getting picked off by Pierce Johnson instead there, which kind of sucked. But as a result, though, coming around to the 10th inning, Fitz ends up being the Manfred runner on second. And then Elliot Ramos, a very unproductive at-bat from Elliot Ramos there. Little infield single that can't even move Fitz up. But luckily, again, Jung-hoo Lee was able to move him up, and they were able to win on the wild pitch there. But, yeah, no, I'm all down for aggressive base running there, but you still got to execute, and that was pretty brutal there. Let's take a call here. We got one of our favorites, Mitch in New Jersey. He is on the line, and he was kind of like you, Dan. He's banging on the table. He wants some trades. Mitch, how's it going, man? You're on the wrap.
How you guys doing? Thanks for taking my call. Happy Saturday. Giants, everybody needs pitching, but I think hitting is going to be the key to winning any of these divisions, especially the best divisions in the National League West. Bo Bichette, I think he's going to be available. He's not having a great year, and I don't think Toronto can pay 2 superstars all that money. And, of course, Oakland and Tampa and the Marlins, they're always looking to trade their best players because they don't want to pay. And, I still wish space will expand, but you got to get rid of some of these bad owners. There's like 5 bad owners that don't want to spend. Got to raise that floor. But Giants got to make a trade for another hitter.
I agree. We threw the name Jarren Duran out there earlier, Mitch, with the Red Sox. Is that a name that gets you going at all?
He's good. Red Sox no talent. They always do. They always got some hitters, and if they can't make it work with Bergman and Devers, I would see if you can acquire one of those two.
How you feel about Buster Posey? An unnamed podcaster out there called him an empty suit. Are you agreeing with that one, Mitch?
Disagree. Come on. He's a catcher. They're well known to be good managers. He's a Hall of Famer, great hitter. It's too bad that his career ended short. He might have the numbers, but he's Hall of Fame material.
Absolutely. Hey, Mitch, appreciate your call, man. We'll talk to you again next weekend, all right?
Thanks again. Have a good week.
All right, that was Mitch in New Jersey there. He's a good regular there. Always has some good Giants takes. We are almost about done with this show. We got about another half hour to go. The Braves and the Giants. First pitch is at 1 o'clock today. And we do have a lineup here, and I'm going to bring up that lineup right now as soon as I can find it here on my phone, which I won't be able to do in time before this break. So I got a lineup for you on the other side. We're just going to do it like that. And that is all going to be brought to you by Fremont Bank. Here for you, here for good.
trying to go too far off the plate out there. And I think he's gotten some bad calls at times. And I think when you start doing that, then you lose kind of where your strike zone is. You know, he still goes 1 for 3 today with 2 walks and had a few hits the day before and the day before. So he's making the adjustment pretty well, I think.
And that's always kind of my thing, Dan. It's like when a guy comes along in the league, and Jung-hoo Lee, he's basically kind of a rookie after the abbreviated season last year. He got off to the great start. You know, he was looking like the greatest thing since sliced bread in April. And then he kind of came down a little bit in May. And for me, it's at some point the league is going to adjust you. They're going to play you differently because they're going to try and beat you. It's how you adjust to the league's adjustment is what separates the, flash in the pan players from players who are going to have some staying power. And for the most part, it seems like Jung-hoo Lee is handling that right now.
Yeah, because there's a book on him now. And usually with a young player, you go through the league and people want to pick up your tendencies. And now with modern technology and everybody has got the video on Jung-hoo Lee. So now there's a book on him. And so, yeah, to your point, now it becomes the counterpunch by that of Jung-hoo Lee. Yeah, I think Melvin makes a good point, is that you always want to stay within yourself. And he still looks as though, he doesn't concern me nearly as much as, say, someone like that, Tyler Fitzgerald. Now, I know Fitzgerald got the base knock last night, but if you look at his at-bats, you talk about a guy who has absolutely no approach right now or has no idea.
You're just out on Tyler right now.
No, you heard me last week. I wanted to see him move up from the 9 hole so he can get more at-bats. Probably one of my favorite players right now, the Giants, is Fitzgerald, because I just like his size and his athleticism. He's got the broad shoulders. And
he's one of the nicest guys and easiest to talk to on the team, too.
And last year, was that you talk about a tease, the 5 home runs in 5 consecutive games? I think he finished with 15 on the season. Where is that?
Well, I think that was never who he was.
No, I know. But
we just saw, you look like Barry Bonds. He hated that comparison, by the way. But no, he did go on that hot tear last year. And it was, a slight blip of what is possible, but I think we all knew that that's not the guy that Tyler Fitzgerald was.
Well, somewhere between that and what it is that we're getting now, hopefully lies the real Tyler Fitzgerald, because hopefully he's not this unproductive in terms of power numbers and home runs and RBIs. Yeah. Once again, he hasn't had a ribby since mid-April.
April 22nd. But I also think, just again, this is no knock on Tyler Fitzgerald. I do think this Jung-hoo Lee is just a more capable and better hitter than Tyler Fitzgerald. Obviously a much higher ceiling than Tyler Fitzgerald. And I don't know where these costs are coming from. But again, I mentioned, Dan, these, there's my own Howard Dean. But I mentioned they're going away from him. He's still got 5 hits in this last week, though, despite this adjustment, as Bob mentioned, 278 so far on this month. So again, it was a rough month of May for Jung-hoo Lee. It was a rough month of May for everybody. Lee hit 231 in the month of May, but it seems like him and a lot of other guys in this lineup, the key was just they needed to walk into work one day and see the month and see June on that calendar and not May, because that's how baseball players are. A new month can do wonders for a guy.
So I'm going to put this to you once again. Put on your GM suit once again. How long, what is your patience level for right field, first base, and second base?
My patience level for second base is actually pretty strong. I'm willing to give Fitz a pretty long runway there. I think he's consistent. Again, if you're looking for all-star quality production, I don't think that's what he is. He's a solid player. He can handle the position. He's getting better defensively at second base. So I'm willing to wait a little bit longer there. Right field, you're already kind of starting to see some cracks there. I think having Gerard Encarnacion return, you're going to see him in right field, and he moves a lot better than you would expect for a guy who's 6'4", 235. He had that, I believe it was Tuesday night, he had that great play out in right center field in front of Jung-hoo Lee.
Scares me a little defensively, though.
He's not, but again, he was scooting, and he made that great catch out there. He had the stolen base on Thursday against Dylan Cease. Cease didn't even expect him to go.
He threw out Iglesias, didn't he?
I believe he did, yeah. So I mean, he's got a great arm, Gerard Encarnacion too. So he is much more. He can move a lot more than that frame suggests. But with the slump that Mike Yastrzemski is going through, you're going to start seeing Encarnacion out there more. You're going to start seeing Daniel Johnson out there more. Cracks are forming in that one. As I said, Dan, first base is the black hole. Like Dominic Smith, it's your position right now. Casey Schmidt will be there from time to time, but Casey Schmidt is, he's hitting a .188 right now. He's also lost at the plate. He is, like a lot of guys on this Giants team, just cannot lay off that low and away pitch. Schmidt's having that problem. Willy Adames is having that problem. Elliot Ramos has had that problem from time to time. A lot of guys, it's been a problem. So yeah, first base, if you can play the position right now, you might have a chance to play for the Giants.
Well, I don't think Dominic Smith can play against left-handed pitching. So are we looking at a straight platoon with Schmidt and?
I thought we were done with platoons, but yeah, no, probably a little bit of Schmidt, a little platoon. Gerard Encarnacion, he'll probably be in the mix for some time at first base as well. And there's gonna be days where they get desperate and they're gonna throw Wilmer Flores in at first base. Though Wilmer is pretty entrenched in as the DH right now. Again, Dominic Smith, he'll be batting fifth today against the righty Bryce Elder. Almost said Bryce Eldridge. Only the first few letters of that last name, though. Bryce Elder.
Speaking of Eldridge, and when I said that I'm out on seeing him in 2025 because this kid's straight out of high school, you don't want to mess with his head. And you can't afford, as the games get more magnified, of him kicking away a potential win because, defensively he's not ready to play at this level. You mentioned Wilmer Flores. If they really get desperate and if it's a perfect storm that he's tearing up the PCL in Sacramento, I would bring him up, but I'm not letting him play first base. I'd bring him up as a DH.
Yeah, that's definitely an option. And we asked Zach Benazian about this on Thursday. Here's what he had to say about the concept of having Eldridge at the big league level and just DHing him and not playing him on defense.
I think we have to stay open-minded to it. Whether we get there or not will be dependent, obviously, on a lot of other things. I think when you add it all up, if as a group collectively feel like, nope, this is a risk worth taking because it's going to help us win, then yeah, possibly we get there. But part of the reason is getting him to AAA. Just I think the right maturation and process for him as he climbs through the minor leagues. And I think the biggest thing is let's see how things go there, and then we keep going. But certainly happy with where he's at offensively right now. And look, I think he's 20. He's undoubtedly going to get better. There's no doubt in my mind he will improve. And I believe he could improve even he's at the big league level. It just might be a little steeper curve.
So open-minded to it. Not impossible they could get that point. But again, it doesn't seem like they're going to rush to get to that point because if you do decide to DH Eldridge, then yeah, it is Wilmer Flores at first base every day. And again, it's, will the defense be better than whatever Eldridge is doing? I don't know, but Wilmer Flores at defense on first base every day, that's a yikes there. And with how well Wilmer has been going at the plate this year, I'd rather not really disrupt that.
He was even scary watching him come home on that wild pitch. I was very secure of that. Bryce Eldridge's pass, I'll bring you in on this. With Shohei Ohtani's emergence, was there any consideration of keeping him as a pitcher at the major league level?
There was actually a thought of doing that, and it didn't last long, just like it didn't last long with another first-round pick from a few years ago, Reggie Crawford. It's just hard to do, and no team has done it. Remember, Shohei Ohtani was established from both sides, and he had a whole routine, but no major league organization has figured out a way to send a guy through the minor league system as a two-way guy. It just hasn't happened. And I don't know what circumstances it would have to happen in, but Eldridge stopped probably in his first year. He picked one. So
yeah, they nipped the bud on both of those guys, Reggie and Bryce, pretty quickly. Reggie, you're a pitcher. Bryce, you're a hitter. And even Shohei Ohtani, really, he was able to pitch for a few years. Like, it took a minute, but I think he's had 2 Tommy Johns now. Is that
two
right?
Tommy Johns, and people still think that he's going to choose. He's going to have to come to a decision to pick one. Right?
It doesn't feel like a lock. If you could pop, 10 years from now, you could pop up in here right now and be like, hey, Shohei's never going to throw another pitch ever again these next 10 years. And I would believe it. Because he's that dynamic of a hitter, obviously. And, I guess if you put it into Shohei Ohtani parlance, what's the over-under on innings pitched that you would bet for him the rest of his career, because he likes to bet on
Well, games. I would say that if the only reason why he's going to come back as a pitcher, in fact, I think he could come back within the month, if I'm not mistaken, is because he wants to. Well, I think the Dodgers are smart enough to we don't want this dude pitching, but one of the caveats, if you're going to lock him up to the extension and give him this contract, I'm sure his people are like, hey, listen, man, he's got to pitch because he loves it. You know, he's a true baseball player. And we talk about Willy Adames' sort of infectious attitude. Say what you will about Shohei. That dude loves the sport.
Yeah, there might be a little level of protecting him from himself there in that situation. But the other reason why he might need to take the mound, Dan, is Dodgers might just need him.
That's true.
Like, literally, it's Yoshinobu. Right now, it's Yoshinobu and Yamamoto and a bunch of who's it's, what's it's. I think Dustin May is back, but he's still coming off of Tommy John. Blake Snell is dealing with a shoulder issue. Tyler Glasnow is they call him Glass now because he's made of glass. So, yeah, but it's all to say, two-way players, it's very difficult, but glad we have Eldridge just hitting. But, yeah, it doesn't seem like the Giants are just yet quite ready to plug him in as the DH. But what if the moment necessitates it, Dan? What if Eldridge is hitting too well and the black hole at first base is just too deep and too scary that the Giants feel like their hand is forced and they have to bring him up before he's ready? Here's what Zach had to say on that subject.
You always want to stay open-minded, and it's not just with Bryce, it's really with all of these players and really trying to get their strengths. I think there's probably as much development at the major league level now as we've seen in the last 15 years, 20 years as players get pushed through the system quicker and quicker. So I would say there's always a chance, whether that's Bryce, whether it's another player, you try to protect them maybe by trying to cover up their deficiencies, in other ways. I was fortunate. I worked for the Milwaukee Brewers at a time when they were rebuilding, and we had Ricky Weeks and Prince Fielder, who were considered defensive liabilities playing first base and second base. And we were starting to become a competitive team. And that was the question with those two. And, do we try to protect them with defensive changes late in the game? In that situation, we didn't. But those are certainly things that you can consider with really any young player that comes up as a way to protect them, but still allow them to grow and hopefully help you win games at the major league level. Because like Buster said, that's what we're here to do. That's what it's about.
So again, it's not impossible. There is some development to be done at first base. Giants has some very good infielder coaches there, but I also think that comes back to you don't want to learn a new position at the big league level, which is, as Risotto pointed out earlier, basically what's going on with Bryce Eldridge.
What's interesting is that I find the Giants and the Kansas City Royals two very similar baseball teams right now. They sort of mirror one another.
Yeah.
Kansas City can't hit either. I want to say Kansas City has fewer home runs than out of the Colorado
home runs
Rockies.
in baseball. Right
yes,
now,
and that's saying something. When you think about the White Sox and the Colorado Rockies, there's a lot of bad teams in Major League Baseball, although Colorado plays in Colorado. But Kansas City can't hit. But it's still a competitive baseball team. But it's a team that can pitch. In fact, the only team that has a collective better ERA than that of the Giants are the Royals, and they're under 3, believe it or not. I was thinking like 2.9.
Well, the Royals came to town here a couple weeks ago. I went to the Wednesday day game that Logan Webb started, and I believe I brought this up last week on the show, but this Royals team reminds me a lot of that 14-15 Royals team, and just in terms of how they play the game.
But also, their big prospect happens to be a 6'5", he's not 6'7", first baseman by the name of Jack Caglione. Yep. And so because they were very similar to that of the Giants, they're in this desperate need for a punch in the arm. They brought him up. But again,
I think they got him playing first base too, don't they?
He's playing first base. Yeah, he came up this past week. Mm-hmm. And so Caglione is now up. And I'm just curious if that in any way would influence the Giants. I already know the answer to that. I don't think so.
Should be a no. You don't want to make moves because of what other teams are making.
But you're seeing a guy that has less minor league experience than that of Eldridge that's already up at the parent club. So maybe if they get to a place where they're like, okay, this is getting ridiculous and we're still within striking distance of getting to the postseason and we need help at first base, that there is a pathway that Eldridge comes up to this baseball team. But a lot has to happen between now and then. And I think the decision-making has to be taken out of the Giants' hands. He has to destroy the PCL. Like, it can't just be okay. He has to prove to everybody that, he's ready to make that step. Because the defense is something that I think is just going to, that takes time. I don't think you're going to suddenly be a good defensive player between now and whenever he gets called up. Should he get called up by the end of this year?
Yeah, he just needs to be capable at the position. really quick here before we're talking about could Bryce Eldridge be the spark plug of this team, but there might be a guy already on the team who could provide that. And I am talking about Elliot Ramos, who is going to be in the 2-hole today here against the Braves. Reached base a couple times last night, a couple hits. Well, it looks like 3 for 4 last night. Also got thrown out, unfortunately, trying to steal second base, but he got that big double on Wednesday night to tie the game. And, he's screaming at the dugout. He's fired up. The crowd's fired up. I was fired up. Is it possible that Elliot Ramos is the spark plug in this lineup that this team needs right now?
Well, he has been all year long.
He has been. I guess, is he the long-term spark plug? Because I know there were talks during spring training of a potential extension in the works. I believe this is his first arbitration-eligible year this coming off season. So all the stars are aligning for Ramos to get himself a little bit of a bag this offseason, maybe even sooner.
It was good to see him to pick up right where he left off of a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the second half of last season, where he was just so good, and just to prove to everybody that this was not a fluke and that he can hit Major League pitching. I think it's only going to go up for him here. He's a Major League Baseball star. We could talk about Elliot Ramos, but again, he needs some help. Like he can't. I don't know if a Major League
him. No,
a Major League Baseball team, especially the way you got the Dodgers in this league. Just
look at what the Padres have their lineup. Tatis, Arias, Machado, Jackson, Merrill. That's just your top 4 guys, and they got Jake Cronenworth, the dude as well in that lineup. No, it cannot just be Ramos. He's probably the best bet right now to break the Giants' 30 home run curse, but his production alone is not going to be enough to overcome the struggles in the line. Like, you put Shohei Ohtani in this Giants lineup. The lineup looks so much. You swap Ramos for Ohtani here in this situation. The lineup seems so much scarier when the entire lineup's the same except for one guy. Like, Ramos isn't the guy who is just like what Barry Bonds was at times with his Giants lineups, where there's a bunch of who's it's, what's it's, and then you got this absolute pillar of a lineup. I don't think he's that guy, but he is a guy who, again, I do think he's got that 30 home run power. If he is your second best hitter on the team, you're feeling really, really good about your offense of that team.
Yeah, as of right now, it's Elliot Ramos and sometimes Jung-hoo Lee.
Mm-hmm.
And then
you get a
obviously
cameo from
Wilmer
Chapman every now and then.
Yeah, and I think Chapman will hit by the time it's all said and done with, but he's Chapman. And you just clearly, I think, to be competitive, especially in the National League, you need more than that.
Yeah.
And
we're just in this own division.
You need a star. You need somebody who's going to give you contact. And again, I know we might differ here. I think that they need to be aggressive and go out and get somebody via trade. And to your point, if they have to part ways with a Kyle Harrison, you got to give up something to get something. And because they have a bounty full of young pitchers, which are so attractive to so many teams, especially if you're a seller, that typically means that you're looking to rebuild. And how do teams rebuild? Well, they do it with young arms.
Yeah.
And so the Giants have a few of those. So there is some leverage on the part of the Giants. It's just a matter of, are you willing to part with one of those guys? And I think they've reached the point where they should say, you know what? We have an opportunity this year. Let's go get somebody.
Yeah, again, it's just a matter of when that happens. And I do think I do expect the Giants to be very active at the trade deadline because, again, we'll see what happens with Bryce Eldridge. It could be very possible that Bryce Eldridge is that quote-unquote trade acquisition that the Giants make to boost the offense. I just think that's just an incredibly unfair expectation to put on Bryce Eldridge to say, hey, instead of making a trade for a big-time bat that we need, you're going to be the big-time bat that we need. Again, we bring up the Buster Posey comparison. Buster's arrival in 2010 was what kind of brought that lineup together. But that's one of those things, like, if it happens, it's great. It's a pleasant surprise when it happens. I think it's incredibly risky mid-season to pin the entire second half of the season on a kid who can't even legally drink a beer yet. Like, I just think that's a lot. If it gets to a point where that ends up being the situation where Eldridge comes up and everything ends up being cookies and rainbows and he leads this Giants team into the playoffs and has a Buster Posey like a rival, that would be the greatest thing that could possibly happen to Bay Area sports this year, and we'll absolutely be stoked about it. But I just don't know if you should go to sleep holding your breath on it. Like, let it happen. Don't expect it to happen, if that makes sense.
Another scenario that could take place is that they can have a trade without making a trade. In other words, if Willy Adames starts to hit.
That's another, the good Willy Adames showing up.
If Willy Adames suddenly starts to be the power guy, like that's not something that you're really factoring in at this point. And so that's almost like getting a new baseball player.
And he is a second half hitter. That is when he comes around. That could be when it happens.
I mean, we started this whole conversation with Willy Adames. We can end it as well.
I mean, Willy Adames what's the Warriors? Is he the new Jonathan Kuminga now? It used to be Doval. Now it's Willy Adames, 888-957-9570. Then the lines light up. Like, is this where we're trending to? Listen, Dan, I think we got Evan in next week, but we'll be talking about the Giants going to Colorado for the first time this year. If there's ever a time to work the kinks out of your swing, it is going to Colorado to face this Rockies team, which, I mean, the Rockies, they were kind of hot this week. They won three games.
They swept the Marlins.
They had, I think it was the Tuesday night game. Who's the center fielder for the Rockies, Steven?
Brendan Doyle.
Brendan Doyle, that's what I thought. He had an incredible catch at the end of that game on Tuesday night out in deep center field. I was watching because Sandy Alcantara was on the mound in his 8,000 ERA taking on the Rockies. It was like, you know the phrase, an unstoppable force versus an immovable object? Well, this was a movable object against a very stoppable force, and Alcantara going against the Marlins. So going against the Rockies. Like, I had to check it out, and there's a point on that broadcast where the Marlins broadcaster is like, or sorry, it was the Rockies broadcaster is like, wow, Alcantara's looking way better than the scouting reports made him out to be. It's just, you got to love bad baseball.
And we actually have the Korean call. No, I'm just kidding.
The Korean call of the, I do believe, we have the Korean call of the walk-off, though, from last night. So let's finish off with that before we wrap the wrap here.
Let's do it.
자, 언더독인 인디애나가 익숙한 상황을 맞이한다. 할리버튼! 버튼을 흔들어!
Oh, heck yeah.
All right, and that was the call of Tyler Fitzgerald scoring the winning run. No, that was actually the Korean call of Tyrese Halliburton's game winner in Game 1 of the NBA Finals. Dan, it's been a lot of fun, man.
All right, buddy. I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, a couple of weeks. Yeah, Evan Giddings will be in next week. Giants-Dodgers next weekend. We'll be able to talk about that. So thanks you to Kyle Harrison for chatting with me last night. Thanks you to all the great listeners out there who joined in with us here on the wrap. Coming up next, we got some Valkyries basketball. I see our guy Cam in the back room. He'll be on the buttons for that one. Tip-off for that is at 12:30. You can hear that on 95.7 The Game and the Valkyries channel on the Odyssey app. Kevin Dana, Sophia Jones, they will have the call. Thanks for sticking around with us, everybody. We'll catch you on the next one.
Not that funny, buddy.